The story starts off with the main character thinking they don't get a redo in life, not even if it was a life filled with regrets. That's why there is a next time. And he decides this time he wants to live his life without regrets, as he will soon find himself surrounded by a bunch of cute and innocent-looking kids. One day, as the main character was walking by the city streets, he suddenly finds two kids kneeling before him and desperately telling him. They beg him, they request him to help them. The main character gets stunned by that, while a kid tells his mother those kids are being bullied. The mother shushes him, and a man passing by finds it disappointing to make such young children do dojeza. The main character nervously thinks this is sudden, but he's what's known as a transmigrator probably. He irritatedly thinks, why probably, because he periodically recalls memories from his previous life, and he finds the super popular game, Bright Fantasy, this world greatly resembles it. He understands that he bought it after watching his friend play, but he never broke the seal, so he doesn't have much knowledge of the game. All he knows is, it's a command-style RP, there were many heroines, and their choices changed which one they married. This world, Bright, is a world of sword and sorcery, and that the protagonist's default name is Isuka. That's about it. The main character realizes his name is Gray because he has a mean look. He is often mistaken for a thug, so he reincarnated as an evil background character probably. Looking at the kids deep bowing before him, Gray seems annoyed and thinks he doesn't know his role in the game, so he decided to just be an adventurer. He understands that an adventurer is an honorable profession. They gather daily at the guild to accept and resolve numerous quests is the gist of it. Gray also understands adventurers have rankings advancing from E to D to C to B to A. Each rank also has a menace and a plus, which is a pain, for example D-, then D, then D+. Furthermore, he's diligently ranked up. He's good at various types of magic, attack, healing, buff, and debuff. He can also use a sword. That's really impressive. Gray believes that he's a B-rank adventurer who can hold his head high anywhere. Now he looks at the kids and frustratedly wonders if they will please stop with the dojeza, as other people whisper, asking each other if those kids are going to be sold, and say they called the guards. But Gray stares at the people whispering about him and the kids, which frightens them, and he thinks, really, every single one of them, judging a book by its cover. Then the kids tell him they know it's shameless of them, but please, they ask if he won't please heal their sick family member with his magic like just now. They're begging him, and Gray wonders how it came to this. The kids went up to a guy asking if they won't buy a flower. Then the guy got surprised by that, as he furiously told him he doesn't need their dirty flowers and kicked him in the chest. Immediately, Gray kicked him in the face and knocked him down. Then he went up to the kids and told them he'll buy a flower, and now, about the recovery magic, he asks if it's for their parents or siblings. The boy tells him no, they don't have parents or a real family. One of the friends they live with is sick, which concerns Gray. He understands that recovery magic can only heal injuries, and only church priests can use curative magic. It's expensive too. But he finds the kids still in deep bow position, so finding no other choice, Gray nervously tells them, all right. The kids surprisingly ask if really. Gray tells them he's not sure he can heal them, and if they're okay with that, to lead him to their place, while wondering if the cure potions he has on him will do. At that moment, the boy nervously tells him as payment, well, and Gray immediately tells him whenever they can pay him back is fine, as they live in the same city. Hearing that, tears start rapidly dripping from the two kids' eyes, which startles Gray, and he frustratedly asks why they are crying. The boy wipes his eyes, telling him because an adult was nice to them, and the girl says everyone who lives with them are kids and they do anything. At that, Gray tells them to calm down. He thinks now he feels like he has to cure them no matter what, so then he starts heading toward their home with the kids. On their way, Gray tells them with a smile his name is Gray, as they can see he's an adventurer. The boy tells him he's Asuka, and the girl says she's Tfio, and they both say it's nice to meet him, but Gray gets surprised to hear the name Asuka. Looking at the boy, he believes this is no coincidence, he's that world's protagonist, as the kid tells him it's nice to make his acquaintance. Gray understands, in the case of being reborn as a villain, if they proceed according to the story, they'll die. Usually the story is about avoiding the main character as much as possible, but since he doesn't know anything, he wonders what he should do. He decides to act according to the directions of his conscience, randomly. Gray believes, even if getting involved with the protagonist leads to his death, That's no reason not to help him. Not that he wants to go ahead and die, he just doesn't want to live regretting not doing what he could. After a bit, Isuka tells him they're there and he heads ahead, saying he'll go in and explain things to everyone first. Gray says, all right. As Isuka heads inside the house, Gray glances around, thinking they're on the outskirts of the slums. Right then, Fio tries to grab his attention. Gray looks at her and asks her what it is, while he thinks she didn't need to wait out there too. Immediately, Fio again bows before him and sincerely tells him really, thank him so very much. But Gray tells her to thank him after he's helped their family. He explains that he could be a bad guy, planning to take their whole family and sell them as slaves. But Fio tells him, even so, he listened to what they had to say. Besides, if he really were a bad person, he wouldn't say that. Gray thinks of her as naive, as there's no basis to trust him. But he looks the other way, finding he's happy that she does though. However, looking at him, Fio worriedly asks if she has upset him, which surprises Gray, and he tells her he was just thinking about something. He's not mad or anything. Hearing that, Fio smiles as she seems relieved and thanks goodness, while Gray wonders if he looks that upset. He thinks he's aware of it though, as he's heard it a lot since he became Gray. That's just the kind of face he has. Right then, Isuka peeks out from his house and thanks him for waiting. After that, he shows him inside, telling him, over there, and Gray finds quite a few kids inside, one looking really sick. Looking at the kid lying on the futon, Gray thinks, so that's their sick family member. A girl a bit older than the others asks if he is going to cure her, and Gray says he'll do whatever he can. The girl seems glad to hear that and tells him sorry, she hasn't introduced herself yet. Her name is Ariel. The girl on her lap is Nana, and the child beside her is Lutz. Ariel adds, the one sleeping in Stella-chan, and requests Gray to help her. Then Gray goes up to Stella to check her condition. But looking at her closely, he gets startled to see something. He asks that this may be a strange question. But what color Stella's eyes are? Ariel replies, they're red, they're very pretty. And Gray says he sees. He notices fangs, white skin, and red eyes. So he realizes this girl, Stella, she is a vampire. She's probably a half-blood, discriminated against by humans and pure-blood vampires. That's sad. Gray wonders if Asuka and the others don't know she has vampire blood after all. If they knew, they wouldn't ask a stranger for help. Right then, Asuka worriedly asks if Stella is going to be okay, and Gray tells him, yeah, she isn't sick, she's malnourished, which surprises the kids. The atmosphere gets gloomy as they think about the fact that Stella's condition is like that because she's malnourished. Gray understands, when vampires don't get enough nutrients, they feel bloodthirst, but Stella hasn't attacked the other children, so he wonders if she has not realized that her bloodthirst is what's making her suffer. So he realizes it's a simple problem for him. She just needs to get proper nutrients, right? And then he asks what they kids usually eat. Isuka starts counting, saying, food that the church gives out, sometimes bread, when they can sell flowers. Then he stops, and the atmosphere gets even more gloomy. That's not much to live off of for these kids. And Gray nervously tells Isuka, sorry, never mind. He understands the church hands out food once a week. That's the best food these kids get. So he tells them, all right, for now, he'll be providing food for them for a month, which surprises the kids. Then Isuka and Fio hurriedly tell Gray they can't ask for that much, but Gray asks if they don't want to help Stella. At that, the kids stop and Gray explains his magic won't cure her, so there's no other solution to malnutrition than eating a balanced diet every day. Hearing that, the kids bow before him and tell him with teary eyes, thank you so much. Then Gray walks out of the house, telling them he'll head to the market, and believing if he abandons those kids now, he'd definitely regret it. But then he giggles and thinks with an evil grin on his face, they ran out of luck when they relied on him, they'll be sacrificed for his self-satisfaction. Gray starts walking toward the market, understanding something heavy all of a sudden wouldn't sit well in their stomachs. So for that day, he'll add some fruit to bread gruel and keeps giggling. Suddenly, he notices some behind him and quickly turns around to find a bunch of guys following him. A bald guy goes up to him and puts his shoulder on his arm, asking with a smile, hey bro, if he's got his eye on those kids in the shack too, while his buddies are smirking behind him. At that, Gray irritatedly asks, what the hell, and grabs his arm, telling him not to touch him with his filthy hands, which confuses him. Right then, Gray breaks his arm. The bald guy gets shocked by that, and without even giving him a moment to think what's happening, Gray grabs his bald head and bashes it into the ground hard. Seeing that, the other thugs frustratedly ask, "What?" and call him a punk. But Gray tells them with a scary look on his face he doesn't know what they're planning to do to those little ones, but he'll make it so they never think about it again, as he takes them all out at once in the matter of a few seconds and leaves them groaning in pain. Gray pulls up one of the thugs by his hair and tells him, if they ever lay a hand on the kids in that shack, he'll feed them to harpies, which frightens him. Gray adds with a terrifying look on his face, they slowly chew on their prey from the torso up, so they don't die, very, very slowly. But then, the thug seems even more horrified and cries out in terror, so Gray slams him to the ground again. Irritatedly thinking his face is what scares him, they all aren't even much better, and calls him a jackass, and the thug cries in pain. Then Gray pulls him up again, saying he might as well ask, and asks why they bothered him, and the thug coughs blood and strugglingly says they thought he was like them and after their target. Hearing that, Gray bashes his face to the ground even harder, furiously asking if they didn't learn in elementary school that they shouldn't judge people by appearances. After that, he heads for the market again, leaving the thugs on the ground there and stretching his arm, thinking, not that this world has elementary school. As he reaches the market, he understands the city he's based in, Bastok, because it's along the route that runs from the capital to another country. It's big in scale and well populated. There's a huge adventurers guild, and plenty of quests with moderate difficulty and corresponding rewards. It's an easy city to live in for career adventurers like himself. But Gray also understands, because of the large population though, there are thugs like those guys and criminals who fancy themselves an underground guild. As he ticks off apples, milk and bread and utensils, he thinks because he doesn't have a team, he gets all the rewards himself. Thus, he can afford to take care of those kids' meals. But Gray believes it's not because no one wants to team up with him. After that, he returns to the kids' shack and says, "All right, time to cook." Both Isuka and Feo get shocked to hear that, and Isuka asks if he's going to cook. Hearing that, Gray stands there stunned for a moment. Then he tries to say he doesn't look like it, but right then Isuka hurriedly tells him he didn't mean. At that moment, Ariamel puts down Nana and requests Gray to let her help. She'll go start a fire. Isuka wants to help too, and Gray thinks honestly. He notices Lutz staring at an apple, but not taking it, so Gray goes up to him and pats him on the head, telling him to wait just a bit longer. Lutz quietly nods. Then Feo takes Lutz away from there, telling him to wait with her, and Nana too, as she holds her hand. Looking at them, Gray surprisedly thinks they're all well behaved, not what they'd expect in the slums. He won't probe though as he goes to start cooking. After a bit, as he is putting the ingredients in boiling water, he finds Ariamel peeling apples and Isuka looking at her, so Gray thinks that it looks like the kids can manage easy recipes. Suddenly, he finds Nana tugging his pants and staring at him. He also notices Snivel hanging from her nose. So Gray bends down and tells her to hold still, as he uses his handkerchief to clear the Snivel. Then he tells her he'll bring it over soon, so to go wait over there. But Nina keeps holding him and staring at him, and Gray nervously thinks she's staring at him so much. He's happy that she isn't scared though. Right then, Nana calls him Dada, which surprises Gray as he's never heard anyone call him that before. That's so wholesome. He wonders she's wrong, but if she will be sad if he denies it. Right then, Ariamel comes up to Nina and tells her not to bother Gray. After that, she picks her up and takes her away from there, while Nina keeps extending her hand toward Gray, and he wonders what he should do and gets back to cooking. A bit later, as the cooking is done, Ariamel serves the kids food, and Gray sits at one end of the table with a mug of tea in hand. He sips tea, thinking he wound up eating with them. Then suddenly, after Isuka takes the first spoonful, he mumbles it's delicious. At that, Feo irritatedly tells him not to talk with his mouth full, as she asks what he is saying. At that moment, Ariamel tries feeding some of the food to Stella, helping her up and telling her there's food. She asks if she can eat. She tells her with a smile to take her time, and the other kids seem happy as well. Gray proceeds to get up, saying it looks like she has the energy to eat. Then Ariamel tells him at least to leave the cleanup to them, not to worry about it, and just relax, and Gray says all right. Isuka hastily thanks Gray for the food, and Feo also tells him, it was so delicious, thank you very much. Gray says, they're welcome, while thinking there's no need to be formal though. Then he thinks, well, time will fix that. After a bit, he proceeds to get up, saying, okay, he's going to head home, and the kids say okay. But right then, Nana wriggles into his lap, calling him Dada, and hands him her doll, which confuses Gray, and he takes it in hand and finds it tattered. Ariamel worriedly tells Gray she's sorry and tries to explain to Nina that Gray has to return to his home now, so to come over there, but Nina's eyes get teary as she says, Dada will leave no. Seeing that, Gray tells Ariamel it's getting close to bedtime, so he'll stay until then. Ariamel says she's so sorry, but Nina clings to Gray, and Gray says it's just how toddlers are. He gently caresses her head, thinking he just wants to do what he can so he won't have any regrets though. While Nina starts to fall asleep, she looks so cute. The next morning, as Gray is heading out, Nina calls him Daddy and asks if he is going somewhere. Gray says well. He pats her on the head and tells her he's going to go find them a new home, so to look forward to it. That's so nice of him. Nina seems understanding as she says, oh okay, and Lutz pats her on the head. Gray thanks Nina for that, and Fuyo and Asuka call her a good girl. Then the two tell Gray see him later and to be safe. Gray tells them with a smile, see them, and leaves for the center of the city. He thinks he wants Asuka and the others to have their own rooms, and a living room big enough for all of them. This is going to be bigger than he planned. A big party house would work, if he can find one, so Gray heads toward the Adventurers Guild. On this way, suddenly, a guy comes at him, and asks with a smirk on his face, if he managed to buy an elder orc's ears, and Gray asks if it's him again. The guy asks while looking down on him, if it isn't right that he wouldn't try to claim he took down one. As it's only been 2 days, that's pretty much impossible, while Gray seems annoyed at him. At that, Gray tells him he gets that he wants him to oblige him in his free time, but he asks if he isn't going to take a quest, as if he's afraid to hunt goblins, he could always gather herbs or something. The guy irritatedly tells him to forget about that, and answer his question, where he bought the elder orc's ears, and Gray wonders if he is seriously asking that. He understands there's a system in place to get rewards for slaying monsters even when there aren't any specific quests. All they have to do is bring a certain item as proof. In the case of orcs, it's the ears. The reason the guy's pestering him about the ears is because he wants to get them as proof. In the case of a quest, any proof suffices. This guy, then Gray tells him, it's not the ears he brought. Well, their ears are attached, so no worries here, as he tosses something at the guy and the guy catches it, looking confused. But then the guy gets shocked to find that it's an elder orc's head, and immediately drops it to the floor. After that, Kai picks it back up, telling him, oi, not to drop it, as since he figured he'd made a fuss, he went through the trouble of bringing the whole head. He adds with a terrifying look on his face, come on, to take a good look, as he hasn't beaten an elder orc yet. Has he, calling him, Cherry Boy? At that, the guy screams, telling him to stop. Right then, the receptionist requests Gray with a serious look on her face to report his quest completion right away, and Gray says right. He puts the elder orc's head on the counter in front of her. Then the receptionist requests him not to suddenly put a monster's head there. He should know that it could be considered harassment, but Gray tells her it's only the proof of completion. The receptionist also requests him not to give those to receptionists, as a new girl might faint on sight, but Gray tells her not to worry, as he only ever comes through her line, calling her Sasha. He understands Sasha is one of the few reception ladies who was never afraid of his face, so even if it's crowded, he always waits in her line. And Gray finds it seems like she's not too happy about that, as Shaka releases a sigh and gives him some coins, telling him, here's his quest reward. Gray takes them and then tells her there's something he wants to ask. Sasha thinks, how unusual, and requests him to keep it short. After hearing about it, Sasha fixes her spectacles and says she sees such guidance is also the guild's job, so they should go. She calls Melinda and requests her to take over. Melinda comes out yawning and says, okay, she will do. But then Melinda terrifiedly asks her senpai what she should do with this head, wait to help her, and Gray asks Sasha if that is okay. Sasha tells him it's fine, as if she isn't called on by name, she slacks off all the time. That aside, she finds it hard to believe that he'd request for real estate guidance, so she asks if something happened. After a bit, they stand in front of a house, and Sasha tells Gray they're there. She believes this property meets his requirements, and Gray surprisedly says, oh, this is. Sasha explains to him, indeed, this is the house Valkyrie's party used. They moved to another building when their party got larger, so this is currently an empty house, and Gray says he sees. He understands Valkyrie, an A+ rank party, is composed solely of women that is said to be the closest in Bastok to S rank. It seems S-ranks even get invited to parties held by nobility and royalty. Gray remembers he was called there once on business involving Valkyrie. He has some reservations, but space, the number of rooms, and the location are all appealing, no objections. He also pictures the kids getting really happy to see the new home, so he seems glad himself and informs Sasha he will take it. At that, Sasha says that was quick. Gray says the price is cheap after all, and asks if it isn't half the cost of similar properties. Sasha explains regarding the price. The ladies of Valkyrie gave official notice if it's Gray, they'll cover half the cost, which surprises Gray. After that, Sasha returns to the guild, telling him, well then, thank you for escorting her back. While inside, Melinda frustratedly keeps calling for someone to do something about that head. Then Gray proceeds to walk back toward the kid's shack, thinking that was unmistakably a good purchase, but suddenly he notices something about him. He senses two guys in the shadows ahead, two on the rooftops, and one behind him, and thinks they could only be after his life. So Gray tells them in a serious tone, for an ambush, to at least hide their bloodlust, as the guy behind him reveals his position and asks if he isn't the one called Gray. Gray notices it's the same spider mark as the thugs the other day, as he recalls one telling him not to think he'll get away with this, as the rapacious spiders will make him, but Gray beat him to shit. Another guy called him a jerk, and frustratedly told him to remember this, as the rapacious spiders, but Gray punched him in the face before he could finish. He also broke another guy's arm, as he screamed out loud in pain, saying his arm doesn't go in that direction. Now, the thug behind Gray tells him that he's come for his life, and Gray asks if he's from that rapacious spiders organization, which startles the thug, and Gray glances at him, thinking with a smile he's easy to read. The thug tells him he's about to die, so he doesn't need to know, but right then, in the blink of an eye, Gray shows up behind him and swings his sword at him, telling him no to answer him, which shocks the thug as he asks when as Gray takes him out. Then he quickly grabs another guy. Gray tells him if they all aren't rapacious spiders, he'll kill them normally. If they are rapacious spiders, he'll kill them painfully, to hurry up and answer him, but the thug just trembles in fear. At that, Gray irritatedly says what a bother, he has to go make dinner for the kids, so he's in a hurry, so he takes out that guy as well, which shocks the remaining guy. But before the thug could escape, he falls to the ground and finds he can't move, so he terrifiedly asks Gray what he did, and Gray tells him it's bind. He's restrained the two on the roof as well. The thug gets shocked to realize that he used magic, as he tries to ask when he used it, but right then, Gray says, time's up, next, and then, one by one, he takes out the remaining thugs. Meanwhile, near a shabby hut in the slums, two thugs are hiding behind a bush, as one of them tells the other they should just attack the kids while he's gone. But the other guy tells him not to be stupid, as that guy is abnormally strong. Right then, Gray shows up behind them and tells them in a creepy tone they ignored his warning, didn't they? The two thugs get terrified by him and hurriedly try to run away from him, saying retreat, but Gray tells them they got some nerve snooping around there. He grabs them by their heads and infuriatedly tells them he didn't manage to get information out of those other guys if they want a painless death, to tell him where their pals are, thinking not to snoop, ever. After he is done dealing with them, he goes up to the shack, and seeing him, Ariamal welcomes him back, and Nina also welcomes him back. Looking really excited, Gray gladly says he's home. He thinks he found out where the rest of the rapacious spiders are, and he'll put an end to them after the kids go to bed. Right then, Nina acts like she suddenly fell to the ground and calls him daddy, which confuses him. She tells Gray with sparkling, innocent eyes and extending her hand toward him to pick her up, which shocks Gray as he feels some kind of emotion he never felt before. That's really adorable. Then Nina again calls him daddy, and Gray coughs as he tries to regain his composure. At that moment, Ishuka opens the door, asking Ariamal if there's anything he can help with, and gets surprised to see Gray. At that moment, seeing Nina sitting on Gray's arm, Stella goes up to him, telling him Papa, no fair, she too, and Gray says she bet, as he picks her up with his other arm, and then Lutz starts tugging. Gray tells him to wait his turn, and Lutz nods. Then Gray tells everyone he bought their new house that day. In 2 days, when everything's taken care of, they'll be moving, and the kids happily say okay. Later that night, as the kids all fall asleep together, Gray tucks them into their blankets, puts on his jacket, and proceeds to leave. But right then, Stella surprisingly asks if he's going to work. Gray tells her sorry he woke her up, He's just going out for a bit, so to go to sleep. Stella rubs her eyes and asks if it isn't right that he'll come back, and Gray replies of course because they're going to live together from then on. Stella tells him not to get hurt, and Gray pats her on the head, telling her right. He doesn't want to make her worry. Stella tells him everyone will worry, and Gray says he sees. Then he gets up and proceeds to leave again, saying, okay, he'll be back soon. But Stella calls him daddy and tells him someday to tell them the reason he became their daddy. Okay, Gray tells her it's nothing to hide. He'll tell her now, but Stella says she wants to hear it with everybody, so see him later. After that, Gray walks out of the shack thinking he feels like she sees right through him. It's not a bad feeling though, and he understands, well then, for the sake of his new life with the children. Daddy has to work hard, as he goes up to thugs from the rapacious spiders he left tied up outside and tells them with a sinister grin on his face he'll be counting on them to guide him to their hideout. The thugs lead them to a place, and Gray asks if it's that house. One of the guys requests him to let him go, as he really regrets it attacking kids. He tells him he'll change, he'll live an honest life, he's begging him, and the other guy tells Gray, he too, they led him to the hideout, right? He doesn't want to die. However, Gray tells them he warned them they're the ones who threw away the chance, and leaves them after taking them out, thinking, to the people who've suffered because of these guys, it doesn't matter whether they have a turnaround, letting them live would be leaving a potential threat to the kids' livelihood. Also, he needs to hurry and finish this up or Nina will feel lonely and Stella will worry. As Gray reaches the front of the house, a guy standing guard there asks who he's supposed to be, though he doesn't look like he lives an honest life. Gray surprisingly says he's obviously an adventurer. Then he tells him to forget that, and asks if they are the rapacious spiders. Hearing that, the guy gestures to someone standing a bit behind him. Then he worriedly asks Gray how he found out, and tries to warn the other, but immediately, Gray takes down both of them using his sword in the blink of an eye. After that, he shakes the blood off his sword, thinking going for the head is fast and fatal. It also ensures they won't rise as undead. As he enters the house, he understands he should hold off on using magic. It would be a bother if they have someone with a magic detection skill, as the thugs inside get shocked to see him suddenly barge inside. One worriedly asks who he is, calling him punk. What happened to the guys outside? And Gray takes him out, excitedly telling him he got them. Just like this, that's really intense. Then Gray finishes off the rest of the guys as well, as they cry for help, telling him to spare them. After that, Gray heads down to the basement and keeps moving forward, thinking, a typical big basement lair. It's taking a while to get to the boss room. Right at that moment, someone suddenly shows up there saying they got a lively intruder and calls him. Gray looks in his direction and finds a buffed guy swinging his axe, telling him he's a former B-rank adventurer. He'll teach him to fear his strength, but Gray easily takes him out as well. He thinks this level doesn't even match up to Gansist. Right then, another guy lunges at him from behind, making little to no sound. However, Gray takes him out as well, and thinks an assassin like this guy is stronger, so he wonders what's up with the organization's training. At that moment, a bald grunt comes there to see what's wrong and gets shocked to see him. He looks around and gets horrified to see all the bodies and tries to dash away from there. But Gray immediately kicks him down and makes him fall to the ground, then picks him up by holding his bald head and tells him with a scary look on his face that's cold, not to run away, to tell him where his boss room is, and the grunt terrifiedly tells him, okay. Then he shows up ahead a bit and suddenly pulls a lever to drop a trap on him. But Gray dodges that as well and takes him out, irritatedly thinking maybe he should have fed one of them to a harpy. After that, he finally reaches the boss room, and seeing him, the rapacious spider boss says he really did come in there all by himself, just as the report said, so he asks what he is to those brats anyway. Hearing that, Gray sounds surprised and tells him with a serious look on his face he's those kids' father. The evil boss seems amused by that and tells him that's great, he's out of his mind. But Gray tells him he's short on time, so they should end this, to bow down and apologize to everyone he harmed in the afterlife. Then the boss tells him to wait and asks what he even knows about those brats, as those brats they. The next day in the morning, as Gray is sleeping inside the kid's shack, Nina and Stella go up to him and try to wake him up, telling him food, and it's morning. They both pat on his face, and Nana calls him a sleepyhead. Then they start squeezing and poking his face, so adorable. At that, Ariel calls the two of them and tells them, Gray-san is tired, so to let him sleep a little while longer, and Gray annoyedly thinks, he guesses he'll get up. Sometime later, at the inn, the innkeeper says, the rapacious spiders, was it? They were apparently a large-scale group in town. A lot of them were fighter types, and they got in fights with the town guard a lot and even gave the elite guards a hard time. But those rapacious spiders were wiped out in one night. The waitress says she heard all the members in their hideout were defeated, including the boss, when she went out to shop. It was all everyone was talking about, and Gray understands. The innkeeper leans back, saying they think other groups would take the opportunity to step up, but probably not. They'll be afraid to make a wrong move and become that guy's next mark, and Gray agrees. Then he tells him they were talking about how he's been in his care all this time, and the innkeeper surprisingly asks if they were, as he likes idle chatter, and the waitress tells Gray she can't even imagine Gray leaving. Gray tells her right, he remembers the first time she saw him. She was scared of his face. Line nervously says she doesn't remember, sorry, and the innkeeper says she was so little after all. Then the innkeeper tells Gray with a smile to come to them if he ever needs anything, and Gray tells him sure. And the next day, Ariamel asks Nina if she has Anya. Nina shows her doll and tells her, have her. Then Gray tells everyone going to go buy clothes was the plan, but looking at their condition he says yeah, they should go to the bathhouse first, which surprised them, and Theo amazedly says they get to take a bath, alright. After that, everyone heads to a public bathhouse, and the owner there welcomes them. Gray tells her he'd like private rooms, one for guys and one for girls. Then the girls get together, and Theo tells Isuka, Lutz, and Gray, okay, they'll see them after the bath. But Nina clings to Gray, telling him to come with them, calling him Daddy, which shocks the bathhouse owner. Ariamel hurriedly goes to bring her, nervously telling her that Gray-san is a man, it's just for a little while, and Stella tells Nina they should go together, while Gray remains there stunned. Then they manage to take Nina away from there as Ariamel explains to her, if she does as she's told, she bets Gray will pick her up for hugs. Nina looks excited, while Gray and Isuka release a sigh. After that, as the boys enter the bath, Gray tells Lutz to sit down, and he'll wash his back. Then Lutz sits as told, and Gray starts washing his hair, saying, here they go. While Gray giggles, thinking with a mischievous grin on his face, he's always wanted to try parent and child activities like washing hair. Then he tells Isuka, after Lutz, he'll wash his hair. At that, Isuka hides in the water, nervously saying, he's good, fine, and it's embarrassing. But Gray ends up washing his hair too. After the girls are done bathing, they walk out, and Ariamel tells the boys it took them a while. She's sorry they have to wait. Theo surprisingly says Lutz is sleeping, but Gray tells them it's no problem. After that, they all head to a clothing shop, and seeing Gray, the shopkeeper stutteringly welcomes him and asks what kind of clothes he is looking for. Gray says whatever she thinks suits the kids. Isuka tells Gray he could help choose too, but Gray says he has no sense of fashion though, while the shopkeeper looks around her shop. Then she puts a cute dress on Nina, and Nina excitedly tells Gray to look frilly like a princess. Seeing that, Gray feels some kind of warm feeling inside him, like he's never felt before, while Stella helps Lutz put on some traditional-looking clothes, and she has chosen something gothic. Ariamel, Theo, and Isuka also put on some new clothes and look really happy. Nina goes up to Gray and excitedly says, so pretty. Gray says, it is, while the shopkeeper seems glad. After that, Gray finally takes the kids to their new home, and the kids look around, astonishedly saying, wow, this is their new home. Stella trots off telling Gray they're going to explore, and tells Nina and Lutz to come on, as they run along with her, and Nina excitedly tells Gray they're going. Isuka and Theo worriedly tell them stairs to look out as Nina falls over, so they hurriedly go up to them. Then as the two help the kids go up the stairs, Nina tells Theo, and Gray tells them to be careful. After that, he glances at Ariamel and tells her the individual rooms are on the second floor, first come first serve, which surprises her, but Ariamel says she'll wait until the last one and tells Gray to go ahead. Gray tells her there's no need to hold back as they're like a family now. Ariamel nervously says that's true, but it's not really that he's holding back exactly, that is, so Gray thinks he guesses it will take a while before they'll make requests willingly. At that moment, Gray hears Nina running around the rooms and excitedly saying, room so big, and Theo tells her right. Then Gray suggests the little ones can sleep with him or Ariamel, and Ariel says yes, they should do that. Gray thinks that will be fine until they want rooms of their own. He's secured clothes, food, and living space for the kids. Next is school. He understands this world has an academy kids can attend from age 12, but it's questionable whether it would really help their future. It's the perfect place for Noble's children to build relationships, but that's about it. If the Noble's brats did anything to these kids, he'd definitely make them regret it. Then Gray wonders if they have dreams for their future, as he hopes they tell him eventually. He recalls he took the rapacious spider's boss's head before he could speak, but it's not that he's uninterested in the kids. He believes he'll get to know them as they live together. Even family members have secrets, so Gray decides he won't look into it without their consent. Besides, no matter what their circumstances are, he intends to support them. That night, as Gray prepares the bed with the little ones, he hears someone knocking on the door. He opens it and finds the other 3 kids there, so he asks what's up. Isuka explains they've always slept together, so it's actually kind of hard to fall asleep alone. Gray understands and tells them to come in. There's not enough room on the bed, so he'll spread futon on the floor. After a bit, he wishes everyone good night as he sleeps along with the kids, thinking this isn't much different from sleeping in the shack. Well, it's fine. Gray dreams of a young girl telling him with a smile later, while calling him One-chan. A woman reminds him to be sure to lock up tightly while they're gone, and a man asks if he's sure. Then he says, well, he's already in middle school after all, so they'll see him later, as they leave the house for work. Gray thinks about those final words. The next morning, he goes shopping in the city market, and as he's heading back, he thinks considering freshness, this should be about right. He also giggles thinking they'll stick to an easy-to-digest meal for a while. When the timing is right, he'll have them eat some quality meat, while people around him get frightened seeing his smile. Seeing him bring so much food for them, the kids thank Gray very much. Gray hands some papers to Ariel, telling her to have a look at them. Ariel takes them and asks in surprise, what? Gray tells her while scratching his neck, recipes and menu ideas and pictures. The kids are amazed to see them, while Gray explains that he won't be coming by every day, so they should use it as a reference. At that moment, Ariel tells him the other 3 are still sleeping and asks if he would like to check on them. Hearing that, Gray thinks it's like he's a father about to leave on a business trip. After that, he heads inside to check on the little ones as they sleep soundly, and he feels warm and fuzzy inside. Then Ariel nervously asks if he slept well the previous night, since Nina threw that little tantrum and all. Gray says it's not a problem at all, so there's no need to worry. Ariel feels relieved to hear that and says thank goodness. Isuka asks Gray if it's true that they'll see him again. Gray tells them with a smirk on his face, of course, he has a bit of a plan. Time to make money. Then he leaves. A bit later, a large monster called the Elder Orc is running away from something as fast as he can while looking horrified. He thinks in terror while his heart races rapidly, he can't win. That much he knows. He has to get away from that man. The Elder Orc understood humans were just livestock that they trample over as they please. He saw all of his underlings get their heads sent flying by that one human. After running for quite some time, the Elder Orc stops and starts panting heavily. Then he looks back thinking, and that guy has been following him this whole time. Right at that moment, Gray shows up there and swings his sword at the Elder Orc with a terrifying look on his face. Immediately, the orc lunges back to dodge the attack before it could hit him, and worriedly wonders why he keeps aiming for his crotch as a piece of his cloth gets cut off. Gray asks if they are done playing tag as he tells him there's someone he wants to buy, so now he should give up and hand over what he's got, as the strongest wicked father in history is at work. B-rank adventurer Gray should have been an NPC in the RPG Bright Fantasy, but before he knew it, he became the guardian of the protagonist and his childhood friends. One morning, as Asuka was sleeping late into the morning, Fio pulls his blanket and frustratedly asks if he will get up already, as everyone has started eating breakfast, and Asuka drowsily says sorry, he'll get up. Then as they get to the dining room and sit for breakfast saying good morning, Gray helps the little ones to their seats while thinking. It's been close to a month since they started living together in their new house. Isuka isn't a morning person, Fio is sensible, Nina eats a lot, and Stella has a sweet tooth. He understands these two are picky eaters, as Nina asks for more while Stella leaves her food unfinished. Gray takes the empty dishes and thanks Ariel for cooking. Ariel gladly says of course and asks him to set them over there. At that moment, Gray notices a paper on the kitchen counter beside Ariel and asks in surprise if this is a recipe he gave her. Ariel tells him with a smile this is a copy she made. She didn't want to alter the ones that were just pictures. Gray looks closely at the paper, finding it hard to believe that Ariel can read and write, as it's unusual for children in that world. He thinks, wow, but it's nothing special. After breakfast, Gray pats Nina on the head saying okay, he's heading out. Nina excitedly tells him to come back soon while calling him daddy, and Ariel tells him to have a nice day. In the yard in front of the house, Lutz is quietly staring at a cat while Theo is sitting behind him. Then Gray tells Lutz to say hi for him too. Hearing that, Lutz starts waving at him. And Gray also waves while thinking Lutz doesn't talk at all, but he often communicates through eye contact with animals. There's still a lot they don't know about each other, but they're gradually learning. Sometime later near Bastoke, Gray takes down a bunch of goblins and salvages materials from the corpses. Realizing his life is pretty different too before, he only went back to the inn to sleep or prepare for expeditions. Now he only takes day quests. Gray thinks he should exterminate these goblins quickly so he can head home, as he swings his sword and finishes off the only goblin who slipped away. After that, as he reaches the Adventurers Guild, Sasha tells him he seems restless lately, and that he's been ignoring Gansas completely, which startles Gray. Sasha asks if he thought she wouldn't notice while handing him his payment, and Gray asks if Gansas has been pestering him lately. Sasha replies every day. Gray says he hadn't even noticed. At that, Sasha asks if he's serious, as Gansas is behind him right now. Right then, Gansas bumps into him, and Gray asks if this is a horror story, but he immediately leaves, thinking he'd rather go home and read to Nina and the others than waste time on him. Right after he leaves the Adventurers Guild, he notices a person about to close a shop selling donuts. Gray goes up to the person and tells him he'll buy 7, and the person thanks him for that. After taking the donuts, as Gray is walking back home, he remembers that in his previous life, when he reached home, he looked at the photos of his family members and told them he was home. Gray knew his family was already gone. It was a meaningless ritual, but he just couldn't let go of it. When he left the house, he also told them he was heading out. After he reaches home, he finds Nina and Lutz playing together outside and tells them he's home. Immediately, the kids run up to him looking excited, and Nana welcomes him back. At that moment, Ariel tells the kids to come inside and get surprised to see Gray back, so she welcomes him home as well. Then she moves briskly as she tells him dinner's ready and asks if they should eat now or if he would like a bath first. Gray says everyone's hungry by now, so they should eat. Hearing that, Ariel takes the bag from him and tells them to wash their hands. Then Gray tells her, oh, and that's for them to share later. But Ariel says disappointedly that he should know he's done this every day for a week. Stella has been skipping dinner because she wants sweets. It's not healthy, so she asked him to only bring them once in a while. Gray says right, and thinks he thought Ariel was like an older sister, but no, she's a mother. After a bit, as everyone sits for dinner, Ariel tells everyone they should eat. At that moment, Fio calls Isuka, and Isuka whispers to her saying yeah, they should tell him. Then he calls Gray. Isuka tells him with a serious look on his face that they want to become adventurers, and Fio asks if he will teach them swordsmanship and magic. Gray and Ariel both get surprised to hear that. She worriedly asks what they are saying. Fio tells her they want to be helpful too, and Gray thinks it looks like Isuka and Fio feel bad for only being on the receiving end. Just having the joy of being a family is enough for him though. Then he tells them with a smile that if that's what the two of them want, he's not opposed to it, but they should set it aside for now, and asks if that's okay. Isuka and Fio both understand while Ariel seems concerned. After dinner, as Gray goes to bed with the little ones to read them stories while they fall asleep, he guesses Ariel's objection is probably just out of concern for the two of them. He understands adventuring is a job where they never know what will happen. Well, all the more reason he should help them gain the skills to support themselves in case anything happens to him. Though he's not planning on dying, he doesn't want to let these kids feel the pain of losing their family a second time. Right then, Gray gets surprised to hear Stella calling him daddy. He tells her sorry and tries to ask if he woke her up. But at that moment, Stella mumbles that can cause transformation, and then she starts snoring softly. The next morning, as everyone sits together for breakfast as usual, Gray thanks Ariel for the meal. Nana follows him in a cute tone, and Ariel gladly tells them they're quite welcome. Gray finds Stella staring straight at her and thinks he can practically feel her gaze. Then Ariel tells Gray, Oh right, she prepared a lunchbox for him that day and offers it to him. She explains it seems like he's been skipping lunch, so if it isn't a bother, if he doesn't need it, he can leave it. But Gray takes it saying sometimes he thinks about eating lunch, so they'll gratefully accept. He thinks if there's anyone who'd reject this, he'd like to see their face after he knocks their head off. Then Ariamel worriedly speaks about Isuka and Fio, and Gray tells her whether they become adventurers or not, he wants to support them in pursuing their dream. But he doesn't understand her concern. He asks why she doesn't talk with them about it, and Ariamel says she supposes she should. After that, as Gray leaves for the Adventurers Guild, Ariamel nervously wishes him to have a nice day and asks him to come home safely. A bit later, as Gray reaches the Adventurers Guild, he finds it's awfully noisy and asks Sasha if there is something going on that day. Sasha informs him that it's the day the ladies from Valkyrie return from their expedition. They cleared a dungeon no one could before, Garden. The announcement flyer has been posted for days. Hearing that, Gray seems dumbfounded. Then Sasha lets out a sigh and leaves, telling him anyway to please line up for a different receptionist that day. She also points at him and tells him no turning in heads, as Melinda begged her crying because it was really shocking the previous time. After that, Gray looks at the request board thinking about clearing a dungeon, as he hasn't gone in a few years. The ones he's interested in are all full of troublesome monsters, so they're not really suited for solo runs. He understands that among the monsters in that world, there's a small chance one can be born with a special ability. Most of the time, there's no way to know what ability they have until they fight them. For example, there could be a goblin with complete magic immunity. Any magic would be useless, but aside from that, it's still just a goblin. It'll die from being hit or cut, or even if it falls from a high place on its own. Gray also understands that even if a monster is an excellent archer, if it uses a club instead, even a novice adventurer could kill it. Similarly, no matter how strong their ability is, if they don't know how to use it, it doesn't do them any good. On the other hand, if it's smart enough to utilize it, it becomes a problem. Gray realizes there could have been one among the goblins he killed the previous day. He feels like there might have been one that was unusually fast. That might be something bestowed on monsters, like a skill or gift that humans are born with. The church would make a fuss about it, but he doesn't think God would care whether they're human or monster. Just like humans have heroes, saintesses, and skill holders, something similar might exist among the monsters. Sometime later, as Gray finishes his quest and has his lunch while sitting on top of a beautiful hill, he puts his hands together and says that was good. He finds eating it while sitting on the grass made it incredibly delicious and wonders if he should take everyone on a picnic sometime. Gray thinks Ariamel is good at cooking and housework, and she's pretty. She would definitely be popular if she went out into the world. Someday she'll probably bring home a boyfriend. He realizes he'll have to practice making sure he doesn't take the guy's head off. After that, he returns to the Adventurers Guild. Then Melinda says next in line and gets startled to see him. She sees the expression on his face as Gray places a large pouch filled with proof of completion on the desk, saying reporting completion. After Melinda looks inside, she seems relieved and says thank goodness he only brought the designated parts this time. When she saw his face, she thought she was doomed. Gray says it's not like he always brings in heads, then looks around asking if Valkyrie has come yet. Melinda points upstairs and tells him with a smile yes, they're upstairs speaking with Sasha Senpai and the guild master. She teasingly adds that Valkyrie is full of beauties after all and asks Gray if he is interested too. Gray turns around annoyedly, saying it's not like that. Melinda tells him not to be shy. Gray tells her not to shorten her boss's title. Then seeing him leave, Melinda surprisingly asks if he isn't going to wait, as they should be coming down soon. But Gray says it's fine. He thinks he wanted to speak about the house, but not that day, as they'd just come back from an expedition. Then he starts heading back thinking now then, a treat. No, he would get scolded. After Gray returns home, he finds Ariamel in the yard as she welcomes him home, and Gray hands her the empty lunchbox telling her lunch was delicious. Ariamel takes the lunchbox from him and gladly tells him that's great, she'll make one again the next day. That night inside the house, as Gray and the kids are chatting in the living room, they suddenly hear someone knocking on the door. Gray gets up and goes to see who it is, irritatedly telling them, hey, it's late, and is about to ask what they want. But then he gets surprised to find they are two girls from Valkyrie, and one of them looks annoyed. Leader of Valkyrie, Amelia, tells Gray long time no see. Melinda told them he was on the first floor of the guild while they were upstairs delivering their report, so she asks if he didn't think it was a bit cold of him to leave instead of sticking around to say hi. At that, Gray irritatedly thinks thanks a lot, Melinda. Then Valkyrie member Kasha tries to calm the situation, nervously asking Gray if he isn't going to invite them in, as they kind of stand out. Right then, Ariamol comes to the door and asks Gray with a smile if these are acquaintances of his, and if she should make tea. Both Amelia and Kasha get worried seeing such a young girl, which confuses Ariamol. Gray also wonders what's with this tension and tells them all to come in already. After that, as they all sit in the living room, Isuka asks Gray if these are friends of his. Gray replies they used to be in the same party. Both Isuka and Fio seem astonished to hear that and greet them hello with sparkling eyes, and the Valkyrie members also nervously greet them hello. At that moment, Ariamol serves them their tea, telling them to have some, and the two thank her for it. Gray also thanks Ariamol. After that, Nina and Stella run up to him and cling to him tightly, which surprises him, and Ariamol tells him with a smile they're worried they'll be taken away from them. She goes up to the kids and tells them to come over there with her, as Gray and his friends have important things to talk about, but the kids cling even more tightly, believing they'll take him away. Seeing that, Amelia nervously says now she has even more questions and asks who these kids are. Gray replies they're his kids, and that shocks them even more. Then Amelia asks with an angry look on her face who the mother is, which frightens Nina badly. She starts rubbing her face against Gray's chest, crying and saying, "Daddy is Nina's daddy." Gray thinks he's going to end up with snot on his shirt, and Kasha tells Amelia not to do that. She's scaring the children. Amelia says, but then Kasha says for one thing about their age. She asks Ariamol how old she is, and Ariamol replies she's 13. So Kasha explains to Amelia that would mean Gray already had children when he partied with them, and the one dating Gray back then was her. Amelia realizes it was her, so her face turns red and she hurriedly gulps tea, while Gray hurriedly tells them to stop it and not finish that sentence. Kasha giggles and says she's sorry. After that, she looks at Stella and asks Gray if that girl isn't a vampire, maybe half or quarter vampire. Stella gets worried hearing that. Gray pats her on the head, telling her it's okay, these two won't pick on her, and Stella says okay. Then Gray lets out a sigh and tells Amelia and Kasha that at any rate, he'll tell them about it, from meeting the kids to moving in there, everything. After hearing all that, Amelia sheds tears saying he never changes. Kasha says yeah, and tells Gray he's so quick to lend a helping hand to people who are weak or in distress. She happily adds he always was, even though his looks and attitude are thuggish. Gray irritatedly thinks she brought up the thing that bothers him. Then he says for his part, he wanted to ask them about the house and how they knew he would buy it. Amelia explains it wasn't just that house. They informed the guild they'd pay half for any party house he bought in Bostock. Gray asks why they would pay for half. Frankly, he's grateful though. Then Amelia explains buying a party house would mean he was forming a new party, in which case Kasha and she would need to check out his members. She adds he was so strongly against joining another party, so she wanted to know what kind of person made him change his decision, and whether they were deceiving him. Gray thinks he's not some clueless novice adventurer. Then Amelia says so they came to see, and found 6 children. Well, it certainly came as a surprise. Gray says he supposes it would. Right then, he notices Nina rubbing her eyes as she looks sleepy. Ariamol asks Nina if she looks tired, as they should go to bed, but Nina drowsily says, "Daddy, don't go away." Gray tells her he's not going anywhere, so go on. When they're done there, he'll go to bed too. After that, the kids all head toward Gray's bedroom. Gray says Ariamon's a very dependable kid. Kasha says he calls her a kid, but she's more like right, she definitely meant wife material, as Ariamol carries Nina to bed. After that, Amelia says, well, that's enough for tonight. Kasha apologizes for staying so late. Gray says alright and tells them he'll walk them home. But Amelia tells him there's no need and asks if he's forgotten who he's talking to, as no ruffians in town would stand a chance. Kasha tells Gray he's the same as ever. It's somehow reassuring. Besides, apparently an entire criminal organization was taken out about a month ago. Their heads were all cut off. Amelia adds that thanks to that, it seems public order is good right now, which is even more reason not to worry. Gray responds with yeah, that did happen. He definitely knows they're talking about the rapacious spiders he took care of. At that moment, Ariamol comes up to the door and asks if they are leaving. Amelia tells her yeah, and apologizes for staying so late, but Ariamol tells her not at all. She happily says any friend of Gray-san is welcome anytime, and the word friend hits Amelia hard. Seeing her reaction, Ariamol confusedly asks if she was mistaken. Then Kasha drags Amelia away from there saying okay, they'll head home now. Thanks for having us, and Gray tells them to come again. After that, as Amelia and Kasha start heading back home, Gray wonders what that was all about. Ariamol says they came to see how he's doing because they care about him, and Gray says he sees. The next morning, as Gray again leaves for work, Nina and Stella run up to him, telling him to have a nice day and to hurry back. Ariamol also runs up to him with his lunch, telling him he forgot that. Gray takes it and thanks her for it, and Ariamol gladly tells him to take care and have a nice day. Then he notices Isuka and Fio practicing sword fighting and tells them not to overdo it. Isuka looks at him and tells him to teach them magic next, and Fio wishes him to have a nice day. Gray tells him to learn to read first, swordplay and magic come after that, thinking Ariamol can teach them to read too. It will be a good opportunity for the three of them to talk, while the kids seem nervous. After that, Gray leaves for work, realizing having family to see him off like this is a luxury. It's more valuable than any extravagant meal or trove of jewels. He feels like he's capable of doing anything to protect this lifestyle, and he thinks with a devilish grin on his face, this is father power. A bit later, as he reaches the guild, he finds Amelia and Kasha there, as Amelia wishes him a good morning and tells him sorry about the previous night. Gray tells her it's fine and thanks her for worrying about him. The members of Valkyrie seem glad to see him. A plus-rank adventurer elf and Valkyrie member Halsaria tells Gray long time no see and shows him a victory sign, and Gray surprisingly says, oh, it's Halsaria. Then Halsaria calls Amelia leader and tells her they should go, is what everybody's saying, and Amelia says right. Gray asks she just got back and if she has another job already. Amelia replies no, they're going to see Lord Bastoke that day. He apparently wants to hear all about the garden. Gray says he sees, then Amelia asks if he is also interested, and Gray replies with a smile, well yeah, dungeons are adventurers' romance. Hearing that, Amelia's face turns red, and she stutteringly says right, since it's been a while, they should have. Right then, Halsaria drags her out of the guild, telling her if they don't get going, Kasha will get mad. Amelia says right and waves at Gray, telling him see him later, bye, while Gray remains speechless. After that, as he hands Melinda a quest request he wants to take, she asks him if he is on good terms with Valkyrie, and Gray asks where that is coming from all of a sudden. Melinda says well, the previous day Amelia asked about him, and just now they were talking right. Gray tells her they go way back, and Melinda says oh. Then Gray leaves, asking if that isn't all. Melinda says right and gets back on with her work. He understands if he said they used to party together, she'd ask for details. The reason they dissolved the party was no big deal, but he doesn't want to bring it up. Also, if Sasha won't come to ask. He recalls his former party, One Blade. Amelia the swordswoman, Kasha the healer, and he the magic knight. The leader and two others, the six of them formed the party. At the time, they were active in a different country. They were a fairly promising mid-level party, and their ranking was advancing smoothly, but bothersome obligations increased at the same time. Gray thinks that's probably why the Lord wants to see Valkyrie, to form a connection with future S-rank adventurers. Thinking about it normally, it would benefit both sides, but he doesn't know how Amelia and the others feel about it. He's curious about the garden, so he'll have them come over to eat again and tell them about it. Gray knows Isuka and Flya will be thrilled. Ariamol will have mixed feelings though, but if the reason those two said they want to be adventurers is because of him, Father is confident he'll cry. While thinking that, he swings his sword at goblins to crush them and finish the goblin extermination quest he took. After a bit, he takes a break as he finishes his lunch and packs up the lunchbox, saying that was good, and then gets up on his feet, saying upsy daisy. But then, as he is putting away his lunchbox, he realizes he's only been taking easy quests and eating delicious food morning, noon, and night. This is completely from living the good life, and then he gets back to work, thinking he wonders what's for dinner. After some time, Gray returns to the Adventurers Guild, and seeing him, Amelia says, "Oh, he's back. Coming back this early means he took an easy job, right?" Gray replies, "Yeah, he wants to get home before dark." Amelia surprisingly asks for those kids, and Gray says it's for himself too. Then he tells Amelia she's back pretty early too, so he asked if Lord Bastoke didn't invite her to dinner. Amelia replies he did, but she declined. Gray understands. The Lord is account, and she turned down a noble it seems. Amelia adds garden wasn't even the main topic. It seems that a hero was chosen by an oracle in another country. He said he wants to deploy Valkyrie as the hero's party members. Gray gets surprised to learn that a hero was chosen, while Amelia irritatedly continues, the hero's a man apparently. And no doubt they were recommended because Valkyrie is an all-women group, they're high rank, and there's nothing unnatural about it, a perfect fit. Gray says that it sounds like she won't accept it. Amelia immediately says, of course they won't. It's like they're being sent as potential brides, that's no joke, and Kasha warns her that her voice is rather loud. Then she tells Gray sorry for holding him up, and asks him to just pretend he didn't hear that, and tells Amelia they should go. Amelia tells Gray sorry and see him later, as she leaves with Kasha, and Gray says yeah, while thinking a high-ranking party turning down a request from the country, he hopes nothing bad comes of it. After that he goes up to the reception desk to confirm his quest completion, wondering if Isuka isn't the hero. He thinks, well, a protagonist doesn't necessarily have to be the hero. At times like this, it would be useful to have some knowledge of the game, and then again, he wonders what's for dinner. After that, Gray finally returns home and tells everyone he's back. Seeing him, the kids run up to him looking excited, and Nina says Daddy's back. Isuka also tells Gray with a smile, welcome home, while Gray thinks he's a bit relieved that Isuka isn't the hero. Ariamel also welcomes Gray home and tells him these three have something to show him, and calls Nina, Lutz, and Stella. The three little ones walk up with a paper each. Then they show Gray drawings of him that they each made. That's so wholesome, and seeing them, Gray feels something magical inside like he has never felt before. He suddenly gets on his knees and covers his eyes. Seeing that, Ariamel worriedly asks if he is all right. Then Gray asks in a shaky voice what she means. He's perfectly fine. Naturally, he's a B-rank adventurer. No sweat, no sweat. They can't shake him up with something like this, which confuses Ariamel. Then the little kids call him Daddy and ask if he's not happy. Immediately, Gray hugs them tight and tells them with teary eyes he's so happy. He thanks them and says he'd better buy frames with water, fire, and impact resistance magic on them. Stella says it's too tight, but the kids enjoy it, while Gray decides he'll become a wonderful father, vowing anew. That morning, before Gray headed out to work, Ariamel looks outside and seems concerned seeing Isuka and Fio talking to Gray, as she thinks it looks like he said something to them. At that moment, Stella comes up to her and asks what they will do that day, and Nina excitedly says they should play. Ariamel giggles and tells them that day they should all stomp the laundry. The kids get really excited to hear that and immediately run off. Right then, Isuka and Fio come inside along with Lutz, and Isuka tells Ariamel they'll do something too. Ariamel asks if really, then perhaps she'll have them clean the bath. Isuka says with a nervous smile about sword practice. Fio tells Ariamel they have something to talk to her about after they finish cleaning, and Ariamel tells them okay. After that, Ariamel holds the little kids, telling them to be careful not to fall. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, as they stomp on laundry to clean it, while Isuka and Fio scrub the bath. Suddenly, Isuka slips and falls on his head. Seeing that, Ariamel worriedly asks if he is all right. The little kids also worriedly ask if he's all right, and Fio helps Isuka up, asking why he fell, and tells him to hang on as she'll give him first aid. After that, Ariamel tells the little ones all right to hold on. They don't want to end up like Isuka, as they get back to cleaning laundry. At that, Isuka embarrassedly laughs, and Ariamel thinks she's sorry. After finishing washing the clothes, Ariamel hangs the clothes outside with the help of the kids and tells them they're all done. Thanks to everybody's help, it's all clean. They did it. At that, Stella giggles, and Nina excitedly tells Ariamel to tell Daddy she helped lots. Ariamel says okay, they should get lots of praise, and asks if they all must be worn out, so if they shall have something to eat. After a bit, sitting at the dining table, Nina says food was yummy, while Stella puts aside her plate, so Ariamel tells her to eat all of it, and Stella annoyedly says okay. At that moment, Isuka gets off his chair, thanking Ariamel for the food, and tells her he'll clean up. Fio heads out, saying she'll go do the shopping, and Ariamel reminds her to bring coffee for Gray. Then she looks out the window and finds Lutz feeding the stray cat, and Nina is also with him. That's really cute, so Ariamel doesn't know what to say. At that moment, Stella finishes her food and calls Ariamel, telling her potty, so Ariamel calls the kids and tells them they should go potty. then it's nap time. After a bit, she puts the three little ones to bed and smiles, looking at their innocent faces. Right then, Isuka and Fio come to the room and call her, and Ariamol surprisingly asks what's up. She finds they brought books, paper, and charcoal with them, and Fio tells Ariamol with a serious look on her face they really want to be adventurers. Ariamol gets worried hearing that and tells them rather than doing something as dangerous as becoming adventurers, she'd like them to get jobs in town, like working at the market or the guild. Okay. However, Isuka explains to her they want to become strong enough to help people the way Gray does, and Fio says they'll study swordplay and magic a lot, so she doesn't have to worry. Isuka earnestly asks that's why first, if she won't teach them to read and write, calling her Ariane. Hearing that, Ariamol still seems concerned but thinks she sees. These two are able to think about their future because Gray reached out his hand to them. So then she calms herself down a bit and tells Isuka and Fio all right, reading and writing first, she thinks that's good. Both Isuka and Fio excitedly thank her. Right then, Lutz holds Ariamol's hand, and Ariamol surprisingly asks if he woke up. Lutz points at the papers, and Fio asks if he wants these, as these are paper and charcoal sticks for writing, if he's interested. After that, Stella also wakes up and drowsily says, Papa lost his hair again, and seeing Lutz scribbling on paper, Nina asks what he is doing. Then Ariamol sits in front of them with paper and charcoal and asks the kids if they will write to Graysan, write to Father, as she'll teach them the letters, so they should write Papa and Daddy. She's sure he'll be super happy. Immediately, Nina picks up charcoal and shouts, write Daddy. Stella already gets on with it, and Lutz also seems excited. Seeing that, Ariamol seems really happy. Isuka and Fio also sit down and start scribbling on papers, saying they'll write it too, Papa Daddy. Seeing that, Ariamol laughs and says even they too, as Graysan will be so happy. Meanwhile, Gray is busy exterminating monsters and says with a terrifying look on his face that he can't wait any longer, and tells himself to hurry up and hand it over. The next morning, Gray wakes up with the little kids around him, so he carefully gets up and says that day all he needs to do is one thing. Going to buy some picture frames as he looks at the drawings made by the little ones that he hung up on the wall in front of him. Then Gray walks out of the room, and seeing him, Ariamol asks if she woke him, as she's just getting ready to make breakfast so he can sleep more. But Gray tells her nah, he's always leaving it to her, so let him help her out once in a while. Ariamol smiles saying well then, she'll take him up on that, and they get to making breakfast. After they finish making breakfast and putting food on the table, Gray wonders if he made too much. He supposes it's fine since they're all in their growth period. Right then, Fio shows up there in a hurry, telling Ariamol she's sorry she overslept. Ariamol wishes her good morning, and Fio gets surprised to see Gray there. Gray tells her with a smile, perfect timing, and asks if she would wake everyone up, and Ariamol tells her she has bedhead, so she asks if she stayed up late, which startles Fio. Then she heads back looking embarrassed and says she'll go wake them up, while there is frenzy clatter upstairs. After that, the little ones come out, and seeing them, Gray wishes them good morning and tells them they got up all by themselves, he sees, while the kids still look sleepy. So Gray walks up to them with towels in hand, saying in a serious tone he'll go get these three washed up, and Ariamol says she'll finish getting everyone ready while he does. Then Gray carries the kids to the washroom thinking onward to the battlefield, but it becomes a disaster. As Nina gets terrified while he tries to wash her face with water, Stella starts drinking the water, while Lutz starts dunking his face in water as he's still sleepy, so Gray hurriedly rushes to him and pulls his head out. So after Gray has finished washing the three up, he is completely soaked in water. Seeing that, Ariamol can't stop laughing and tells him she's sorry, they must have been quite a handful. Then Gray tells her that's right, she doesn't need to make lunch for him that day, and Ariamol surprisingly asks why that is. Gray puts down the kids and says with a smile he's not taking a quest that day, they should all go out to eat, which surprises everyone. Nina astonishedly asks if really calling him Daddy. Stella asks him if he's taking a day off. Lutz's eyes are also glimmering, and Gray says yeah. The kids excitedly say yay yay, but Stella asks if she can go too. Gray pats her on the head and tells her of course it's a family outing. Gray thinks he understands why Stella's worried. She must think everyone looks at them strangely because of her. So he decides if they run into anyone like that, they'll cut them. He stops and thinks take care of them. Ariamol asks Stella if that isn't great, as they'll all get ready to go out, and Stella makes an affirmative sound as she seems really happy. After that, Gray thinks that reminds him the other day when he was talking to Halsaria. A man walked up to them and called them out. Halsaria surprisingly asked, "What's this?" "A city guardsman." The guardsman pointed at Gray and said they received a report that someone who looks like they'd sell an elf is talking to an elf, and Gray asked what he means by that. Now, the guardsman seems frightened to see him, so Gray thinks Stella shouldn't worry, as he's the reason everyone looks at them strangely. He understands the prejudice against his face beats that against a mixed-blood vampire, as another guardsman asks, even supposing he isn't a kidnapper, whose children those are. Their parents must be worried. Right then, Gray tells them with a terrifying look on his face, their parent is him, and the guardsman asks what. He tells him that he should think before he speaks. He asks if those children are siblings, as they don't look anything alike, but Gray tells him there are blood-related families who don't look alike. Then the guardsman looks at Stella and says with a disgusted look on his face, besides that purple-haired child is. Right at that moment, Gray sounds surprised and asks the guardsman with an infuriated look on his face, what about her? The guardsman gets terrified by that, but tells him no matter what attitude he takes with him, their job is to keep the peace and protect the citizens. If he has something to say, to come to the station too. Right then, Ariamel shouts at the guardsman, telling him to excuse her. She seems really angry at him and tells him in a serious tone everything this man Graysan is saying is the truth. They are his children, a family. By their standards, children wearing normal clothing are citizens. If that isn't right, then it's none of their concern, and the guardsman stutteringly asks, "What the?" Immediately, Nina and Lutz hold Gray's legs tightly, as Nina shouts at the guardsman not to bully Daddy, and Lutz trembles in fear, while Asuka and Theo also stand with Gray. That's really wholesome. The guardsmen seem flustered and look at each other. Then Gray thinks, kids, sorry, if anything. This scene looks like he's bullying them, as he steps up to the guardsman looking even more infuriated. Then Ariamel grabs his hand and pulls him away from there, saying they should go. When they were wearing tattered clothes, they wouldn't do even a single thing for them. After that, she suddenly freezes and hurriedly tells Gray she's sorry. She got all worked up, but Gray tells her with a smile not at all, and thanks everyone. He gladly says the one who should be protecting got protected, and thinks helping these kids back then was the best decision he ever made, while the kids also seem happy. After that, they head to the inn where Gray used to stay, and seeing them all, the inn owner and Lena both seem surprised. Then suddenly, the two start acting up even more, and Gray annoyedly asks if they don't think they're way too surprised. The inn owner stutteringly says no, he asks Lena if that isn't right, and Lena says yeah, it would be more strange not to be surprised. Gray tells them while holding the little ones in his arms and on his shoulders, there's nothing strange about it, and Ariamel nervously smiles. Then as Lena gossips with Ariamel and the others, the old man asks Gray while scratching his head, well, so if these kids are why he suddenly bought a house. Gray says it's not like that was the only reason. He explains it was perfect timing for the kids and him, so he thought it was about time he set down his roots in that town. Hearing that, the old man tells him with a wide grin on his face he went and did something that doesn't suit his face, and Gray irritatedly says his face was uncalled for. Then the old man tells the kids all right to have a seat wherever they like, and tells Lena to get cooking. After some time, as cooking is finished and the kids dig in, Ariamel amazedly says this is so delicious, and Nina shouts delicious. Stella also seems eager to finish all the food on her plate, and Ariamel asks Lena if she will teach her the recipe. Lena says sure and gets surprised to find she can write. Then Gray asks the old man if this isn't better than when he was staying there. The old man tells him that's because eating with family makes it better, and asks if he didn't know. Gray finds it hard to understand and says no wonder he's putting on weight, as he realizes family times delicious food equals very delicious food. And the old man proudly tells him well, to come to him if anything happens, as his senior in life and in parenting, he'll generously give him advice. Gray says, big talk. A few days later, as he is heading out for work, Ariamel hands him his lunch and wishes him to have a nice day. But Gray notices that Ariamel seems to be in high spirits, so he asks if something good happened. Ariamel pats Nina on the head, saying she's going shopping with Lena-chan that day. Gray seems glad to find that they're good friends already, and that evening he heads back home thinking he wonders what's for dinner that night. On his way he crosses paths with the owner of the inn, and the old man says, oh, if it isn't Gray, and asks if he's heading home as it's still early. Gray tells him he's done for that day. The old man tells him Lena and Ariamel are getting along well. They're shopping just over there as he looks to the side, but they see some boys asking the girls to just come and have tea with them. The girls decline the offer, but the boys persist, telling them it's no big deal, they won't do anything to them, they just want to chat, come on. Right then, the old man and Gray come up to them with terrifying looks on their faces, as the old man says, oh, well then, they can have a nice long chat, and Gray adds, yeah, they'll listen very intently. The boys get terrified seeing them, and the old man tells them not to turn them down, as it's not like they have a choice in the matter. Then Lena surprisingly calls her dad, and Ariel calls Gray-san, which shocks the boys. Then Gray and the old man both tell the girls to head back home and start preparing dinner. And as for the boys, the two men grab them by their arms and take them away, as the old man asks Gray if he shall come on, and Gray says they'll have a good talk with these two. After that, they lecture them a bunch and tell them not to do it again, and the boys desperately tell them they understand, so to spare their organs and not to hurt their families. The men ask what they are on about and let them go. Immediately, the boys run away from them as fast as they can. Then Gray walks out of there and finds Ariel waiting there, so he tells her she didn't have to wait out there. Ariel apologizes for causing a bother for him, but Gray tells her not to apologize. It doesn't bother him at all, and it's only natural to help family. However, Ariel still seems worried and stutteringly says she's just. Right at that moment, Gray calls her and Ariel stops. Then he nervously tells her she should know seeing her out having fun with Lena makes him glad he introduced her so well. Seeing the two of them having fun makes him happier than anything else, and her holding back bothers him more, so to let him spoil her a bit more, like Lena. Hearing that, Nina hurriedly runs up to him and asks Daddy, what, as she thought Gray said something about her. Then he picks her up, saying Nana loves being spoiled. Then Asuka and Fio start sweating, as they nervously tell Gray they don't, but before they could finish their sentence, Gray gives them a big hug as well. Seeing that, Ariel nervously asks Gray if she can, if that would be okay, and Gray extends his arm toward her and hugs her as well, like his daughter. After that, another day, Lena tells him there's a rumor going around that if anyone bothers her or Ariel, a pair of dangerous guys will kidnap them, so nobody hits on them. Thanks, but Gray thinks they didn't kidnap anybody. Some time later, after Gray returned home, Asuka rushes straight at him and swings the stick he's using as a dummy sword at him with everything he has, but Gray moves sideways. Then Asuka stumbles and falls to the ground, and Gray tells him that's why they don't close their eyes when they swing their swords, to pay attention to his opponent. Asuka gets back up and wipes dirt off his face, saying, yes sir. Gray recalls Ariel asking him, while still looking hesitant, to teach those two swordplay. They've been working really hard to help with housework and learn to read, and thinks it looks like she still doesn't entirely approve, but if they've worked things out between them, then they'll do it right for their sake. Gray understands magic will have to wait until they've mastered reading, because there's no point if they can't read, and he has nothing to teach someone who isn't serious about learning. He knows there are people who want to learn but never get the opportunity. One has to do whatever it takes. Then Gray tells Asuka to take a break and tells Fio her turn. Fio comes forward, saying, yes sir. In the meantime, at the Church of the Holy Kingdom Storia, the bishop goes up to a knight in white armor and tells him it's about time to go. Preparations for departure should be complete, and the knight nonchalantly says, all right. The bishop says with a smile he'll send someone to get him presently, and asks him to wait there for a moment. Then he walks out of the room and orders a soldier to have a carriage readied. The soldier says, yes sir, and another knight asks how the lad's doing. The bishop lets out a sigh and says the same as ever. Even if it was by oracle, having to take care of a gloomy child like that is bringing him down too. But the knight says well, his strength is the real deal, as even though he'd never held a sword before, in a mere 3 months' time, he's far surpassed the average knight. The bishop turns around, saying next is the saintess right, as he recalls in the neighboring country of Bastoke. The knight hurriedly says naturally, rather, they need him to reach holy knight level in a hurry. Other countries have already received the word that the hero has been chosen. Right then, the bishop stops him and tells him the saintess is from that country. They never know who might be listening, so to mind his tongue, and the knight irritatedly says, yes sir. The bishop thinks it would seem she's from the wealthy merchant class though. Good grief, he finds it hard to believe that that era's hero and saintess would both be orphans. Well, that is why they're able to bring them both there without inviting future trouble. Then he starts walking, saying, well then, they should go to welcome Saintess Ariel Sama, and the knight says, yes sir. As he follows the bishop, He thinks welcome, he says, but he wonders if it isn't just an abduction, and since the saintess is a child too, it seems like she'll make a good snack. Later that day, while going through a book, Gray becomes thoughtful and says, hero and saintess. At that, Isuka surprisingly asks if he said something, and Gray replies nah. Then he asks Isuka what he thinks about the hero and saintess. Isuka says nothing in particular, then Gray asks Fio, and Fio replies saying here. They're supposed to be the ones who will save the world, but the scope is so big that it's like a story from a book. At that, Gray thinks he thought as the protagonist, Isuka, and probably the heroine, Fio, had a special bloodline, but that seems unlikely. They're not even interested, so he decides he'll ask the Nap Squad later. Gray is so cute when it comes to the little ones. Seeing him, Fio whispers to Isuka that Gray-san is pretty deep in thought, so she asks if he thinks something happened. Isuka says he doesn't know. The previous day, on the way to the guild to report quest completion, Gray met with Amelia, and Amelia told him to come to their party house for a bit. Without waiting for a reply, Amelia grabbed his arm and tugged him along with her, and Gray surprisingly asked, Oi, what in the world? Amelia told him sorry, but she'd like him to just come quietly for now. After a bit, as they reached the party house, Kasha welcomed Gray. Then she asked him sorry, it's so sudden, but if he will please listen to what they have to say. Gray asks if it's something they can't talk about at the guild. Kasha said there are too many people there. She told Gray to have a seat. She'll make tea, but Gray told her to just tell him what it is about. Then Halsaria asked if he heard about the hero. He's on the way there from the neighboring Holy Kingdom Storia. She added, for some reason, instead of taking the highways, they're traveling through the woods. A fairy friend of hers told her. Gray thought he had heard that elves, the people of the forest, can perceive fairies, but he asked how they know it's the hero. Halsaria explained the hero is a special existence to the fairy folk as well. They knew as soon as he entered their territory. Gray wondered if there's no privacy. He asked if the hero is coming there alone. The fairy shook her head sideways, and Halsaria said not alone apparently, but they didn't say how many. Gray said he sees a right. Then he asked, so, why they are telling him this, and Kasha told him he may recall they turned down an invitation to join the hero's party. They're not sure what they're after, but they want to exercise caution. They can't quite trust this city's lord after all. Amelia told Gray, so they thought they'd let him know, and he can help if something happens. Kasha added though Emi was the one who insisted it should be him, and went ahead on her own, which startled her, but Gray told them it's not like he turned them down. He still thinks of them as comrades after all. He thought besides, the fact that they're avoiding roads makes it pretty suspicious. There's also a chance this has something to do with Isuka and the others. So Gray decided to hold off accepting quests for a while and stay with the kids, and requested Amelia, Kasha, and Halsaria, if the worst case happens, to take care of his kids. The three nodded and told him with a serious look on their faces they promise. Then Gray wondered if a hero will die if he loses his head. Now, Gray says Ariamel's awfully late. Fio says maybe Nina, Stella, and Lutz are having trouble getting to sleep. Gray gets up from his chair, saying he'll go take a look. He goes to the bedroom to check on them, and finds Ariamel sleeping as well along with the little ones. They all look so cute together. So Gray puts a blanket on them and heads down. Seeing him, Isuka asks where Ariane is, and Gray says she fell asleep with the others upstairs. They should keep it down. Hearing that, Isuka and Fio nod at each other and continue with their studies. Looking at them, Gray thinks these two really are working hard lately. He worriedly wonders if the hero's objective is related to the kids, the girls, or something else, as he decides he'll protect the kids no matter what. In any case, there's only one thing for him to do. Right then, someone knocks on the door, which surprises Gray, and Fio gets up, asking if it's a visitor. But Gray tells her to keep studying. They'll get it. Fio says with a smile, okay, and gets back to studying. Meanwhile, Gray carefully walks up to the door and asks with his hand on his sword who it is. The person outside says it's her. She came with some information. Then Gray opens the door and finds that it's Amelia. He surprisingly asks if she's alone, and Amelia asks if that is a problem. Gray tells her it's fine. Well, to come on in. Amelia says she'd love to, but Kasha said to come back as soon as possible, so she apologizes. She explains if they head straight for the city, they should arrive in less than half a day. Halsaria says that the hero has apparently exited the forest. Also here, they should be careful. Amelia hands Gray an item, telling him it's a magic device for communicating. She'll give him one to use if anything happens, and she'll come right away. She adds they can't directly exchange words, but if they hold one stone and concentrate, the other stone will shine brightly. Gray takes one of the stones and says, wow. Emilia explains they didn't have these back when they were one blade. They're normally used by parties when dungeon delving. Apparently, it will give them a general idea of where one is. So Gray thanks Emilia for it and tells her to use hers if something happens too. Emilia tells him, okay, if that happens, they'll be counting on him. After that, she leaves, telling him later, and Gray thinks he's been going solo for so long that he didn't know about these. They'll buy some for Asuka and the others to hold on to. Then he goes back inside the house, and the kids surprisingly ask about the visitor. Gray says it was Emilia. She finished what she came for, so she left. Theo asks if Emilia is one of his old party members that came by the house a while ago. Gray says, right, the blonde swordswoman, and Theo amazedly says, that pretty lady. Then she and Asuka whisper something to each other, while Gray pours some tea for the three of them. After that, he brings the cups to the table and tells the two of them, here to drink up. Theo thanks him very much, but she walks up to him and asks with an excited look on her face if Emilia-san is his girlfriend. Asuka gets startled by that, while Gray gets shocked and chokes on his tea. At that, Theo asks if she should have not asked that. Gray tells her nah, it's fine, and asks what made her think that, while Asuka offers him a handkerchief, telling him to use this. Theo explains to Gray when Emilia came there before, her eyes when she looked at him were completely different from when she looked at anybody else. Gray says they dated when they were in a party together, but they broke it off a long time ago, so she's his ex-girlfriend. Then Theo asks why they broke up. Asuka hurriedly tells her she shouldn't pry, but Gray replies, no particular reason, they just drifted apart. She should see it happens all the time. Then Theo also tries to ask when he says they drifted apart what he means. Asuka stops her, and Gray annoyedly thinks that's all she's getting out of him. He doesn't know about Emilia's fans and some of the nobles, but he wonders if things like that are interesting. Right then, Ariamel hurriedly rushes down and says she's sorry, she'll make lunch. But Asuka tells her with a smile they all ate together and asks if she remembers, which surprises her. Ariamel realizes she was dreaming, so she blushes out of embarrassment and hurriedly covers her face. Then she heads back, saying she's going to wash her face. After that, Gray says that was some impressive bedhead, and Theo tells him he should know that he can't say that to her. Ariane is a young lady after all. Gray says right, but he also wonders if it wouldn't be worse not to know. That evening, Gray goes to the kitchen and tells Ariamel he'll help her prepare dinner, but Ariamel nervously tells him she'll handle it by herself that day if he doesn't mind. Gray says alright and worriedly wonders if she is entering the rebellious phase, while Ariamel gets to preparing the ingredients. After that, Gray heads outside. Nina excitedly calls him Daddy and waves at him, as she was playing with Theo and Lutz, making flower garlands. Gray also waves at her with a smile. Right then, the owner of the inn shows up there and tells him, well, to look at him, being a dad. Gray asks what he is doing there, if Lena finally kicked him to the curb. The old man tells him to shut up, as he is saying this after he went to the trouble of bringing soup because they have leftovers. He hands the pot with soup to Gray, happily telling him this is the first time he's seen his place. That's a nice house. Here, to take it. Gray takes it and says, okay. Also, the old man tells him in a serious tone there are guys asking around at the inn and the guild's bar about Ariamel. They're dressed like mercenaries or adventurers, but they're awfully well-mannered, so to be careful. Hearing that, Gray says understood and tells him he has his thanks, as he seems concerned. Then the old man leaves, telling him not to thank him. Ariamel is Lena's friend and his family. Obviously, he's going to help out. Then Gray goes back inside the house. Ariamel surprisingly asks that pot. Before he could reply, Nana raises her hand and says, oh, Lena's daddy came and brought it. And Gray adds, because they have leftovers, he said. Hearing that, Ariamel amazedly says, goodness. Gray says they should bring them something next time. Ariamel tells him with a smile, yes, they should, and tells everyone, come on. They should wash their hands and eat. Sometime later, as night falls and everyone is done having dinner, suddenly someone knocks on the door, and Ariamel surprisingly says, oh, a visitor. But Gray tells her to wait, as he'll get it, and to make sure to stay out of sight. Ariamel seems confused to hear that. Gray goes toward the door, telling Ariamel if he goes somewhere, he'll be out late, so not to wait up, and asks if she got it. Ariamel says with a smile, all right. Then he reaches the door with his sword in hand, and asks the person outside who it is, as it's late. A guy tells him he apologizes for troubling him so late. They're members of the mercenary group Night Mist Hawks, and they've been hired by a certain noble to find a missing girl named Ariamel. He asks if he happens to know her. Gray understands it's a barefaced lie. It's not like they're at war, so why a noble would need to hire mercenaries? They use private guards or high-level adventurers. Adventurers have an identification card issued by the guild. In order for it to be valid in various countries, it comes with constraints determined by the country's laws and adventurers' principles. Gray knows when it comes to high-rank adventurers, they're even required to prioritize jobs from nobles and royalty. Mercenaries have no such constraints and get jobs based on personal trust, meaning these guys have strong ties to the noble in question. It's possible they know he's an adventurer, and that if they made a half-assed pretense of being adventurers, he'd see through it. So Gray realizes they definitely can't be trusted and tells the guy talking to him, "Fine," as he opens the door. He finds two guys waiting outside as one of them thanks him with a smile and tries to ask then regarding the girl called Ariamel. But right then Gray asks what the name of the noble who hired them is. The guy says he's afraid they can't reveal that information. It's in their contract. Then Gray tells him he has nothing to say to them, to get lost, thinking not saying who's looking is hard to swallow. He wonders if he thought that by leaving it at a noble, he would make his own assumptions. Too bad for him, he wouldn't answer even if they were working for royalty. At that moment, the expression of the two mercenaries changes as they understand he must be hiding something. But Gray glares at them even harder, and the mercenaries get startled by that. So the guy asks if there isn't any way he'll tell them. Gray replies nope and asks if they are really mercenaries, as they seem awfully unfamiliar with the territory. The guy confusedly asks what he is implying and Gray says nothing. Then he tells the guys with an irritated look on his face it really is about time they leave as it's past his children's bedtime. If there is anything else to come again another day. While thinking he doesn't want to stain their home with blood after all. It seems he has his priorities. Then one of the mercenaries whispers in the other's ear and the guy glances behind Gray inside the house. After that the mercenary who talked to Gray says, "Understood, they'll take their leave then. They'll speak with him again the next day." Gray thinks no doubt they have a companion at the back door, but this house used to belong to an all-women adventurer party. All the entry points are exceedingly secured so they won't get in easily. Besides, no doubt they'll watch for him to go to bed and launch a sneak attack. If they're after Ariamel, leaving only her alive and silencing witnesses is a likely tactic. But Gray decides with a devilish grin on his face, well, he doesn't like sitting around waiting to be attacked anyway, so he'll be taking the initiative. Right then Amelia shows up there dragging a guy by his feet. Meanwhile, one of the two Night Mist Hawks members walking away from Gray's house tells the other, just like their intel said, that man must be hiding the girl they're after. The other guy says, yeah, they can tell he's scum just from looking at him. And the previous guy says apparently he's a fairly skilled adventurer, but he's a low-grade vicious thug. The other guy says at any rate they'll report to the bishop and finish it within the day, as soon as they rendezvous with Soma. Right then someone behind them surprisingly asks, "Oh, if that's this guy's name," hearing that the mercenaries hurriedly turn behind and draw their swords, asking who's there. They find Gray standing there exhaling heavily. He tells them with a terrifying look on his face not to go leaving their trash lying around, as he dragged Soma with one hand and is holding his blood-soaked sword with the other. The mercenaries get shocked to see him, and one of them worriedly asks what he has done to their companion. Gray says, so noisy, there's no need to shout, as he can hear him just fine. This piece of trash was up to something sneaking behind his house, so his friend apprehended him. He put up a fight and had to be incapacitated. No matter how they look at it, he was in the wrong. Then Gray tosses the body at the others and tells them to look, as he's still alive, and he'll return him to them, so to give him some answers. He asks why they are looking for Ariamel, what they are planning to do when they find her, and where this bishop of theirs is. The mercenaries point their swords at him, and think he found out about the bishop, so they can't leave him alive. But right then, before they could realize it, Gray rushes at one of them and swings his sword at him, tossing his sword straight out of his hand, and then again swings his sword at him, telling him to die, as he slices off his head and arm in an instant. The other mercenary gets stunned to see that as he wonders how he is so fast. Then Gray turns toward him and takes him out as well. As his head falls and rolls on the ground, Halsaria shows up there and asks Gray if he's done. Gray asks if she didn't see the whole thing. Halsaria replies, absolutely, while showing a victory sign. Then Gray wonders why ask. Halsaria playfully looks around and tells him he's as merciless as ever, and Gray says there's no need for mercy. Anyone who threatens his children's peace and quiet is an enemy. If they were prepared to take from someone else, they were at least prepared to have something taken. So Halsaria says he's the doting parent type. but Gray says it's only natural for parents to dote on their children. Halsaria thinks about it and says he should hurry up and get a wife, and asks, how about their leader, for example? Gray tells her if Emilia heard her, there's no telling what she'd do. But Halsaria says with a wide grin on her face, she'd just go completely red-faced from embarrassment. Then Gray tells her to never mind that and asks if she knows where the hero is. Halsaria points, saying a bit outside the city in that direction. He looks just like the spirit said, so she's pretty sure it's him. Gray says it won't matter if there's a bit of a ruckus. And Halsaria says there are 5 people, including the hero, 1 in an excessively fancy robe, 1 in pure white armor, and 2 with the same looks as those ones on the ground. Gray says he sees and thanks her. He understands Halsaria is quite a skilled hand with a bow, but she's also a top-notch scout, completely different from his attempts. Enough to be a bit depressing. Then Halsaria asks if he isn't going as she'll back him up. If she went back, leader weepingly stuck watching the house would only get mad at her. Gray says he got it and requests her to do it. He thinks he asked Emilia and Kasia to stay at the house to guard the children. Emilia seemed to want to come with him, but she's at least as strong as him, maybe even stronger, so she's the only one he can trust with the children. Gray remembers last time something seemed off between her and Ariamal, so it would be nice if they can get along. Meanwhile, near Bastoke, the bishop says they're late, so he questions if they can't even handle a simple errand properly. A mercenary says he's terribly sorry. There's been no word since the report that afternoon. They reported that Saintess Ariamal was taken in by an adventurer in the town. The bishop says an adventurer who's no doubt some lowly fellow who works from morning till night. Just give him some money and he'll hand her over. However, the mercenary says if he knew she's the saintess, he might ask for more. The bishop says if that happens, there are a number of ways to deal with it. First, they need to confirm that she really is there. That's all. He should know the errand they sent 3 nights for, and yet. He releases a sigh and says they still haven't returned. He irritatedly thinks he wants to get this over with and take the saintess back to the holy kingdom of Storia. If he does, his future will be bright. He could even become a vicar. Even if negotiation fails, they can just sneak in at night and take her by force. Silencing witnesses, of course. The hero looks at him, muttering to himself, and sadly thinks so this Ariamal is also going to be separated from the people she cares about. Right at that moment, someone walks up to them telling the hero, good grief, he's so damn gloomy, he should have just let him go. Seeing him, the knights hurriedly ready their weapons, and the bishop asks who he might be and what business he has with them. Then Gray tells him with an infuriated look on his face, so they're the stalkers who've been sniffing around his daughter, which surprises them. Hearing that, the knights at the front say no way and worriedly call the bishop for further instruction. The bishop annoyedly tells them silence, as it's their own fault for failing to carry out a simple errand. And the knights point their swords back at Gray. Then the bishop asks Gray what his objective is. Gray replies, obviously he's come to settle the matter. At that, the bishop releases a sigh and asks if he's come to settle the matter, how much he wants. And Gray irritatedly asks, what? The bishop asks if it isn't right that he's after money, how much it will take for him to hand over the saintess. Gray surprisingly asks if he said saintess, if Ariamal is, and keeps getting more pissed off. The bishop tells him indeed she is the saintess chosen by Oracle. Also, he tells him with a smile it isn't necessary that she be a virgin. However, Gray asks in a scary tone what. The bishop explains he's saying it doesn't matter if he's already had relations with her. Immediately, Gray swings his massive sword, aiming for his head, telling him to die. Right then, another knight steps in front of the bishop and stops his sword with his own, saying, oof, that was close. The knight shrieks because of the insane amount of force, but tells Gray with a smile it would cause a lot of trouble if he killed him now, so it'll face him instead, while the bishop seems terrified. He frustratedly asks to raise a sword against him, a lowly adventurer. How dare he, and calls Alice, telling him to kill that adventurer too. Hearing that, the hero flinches. Then Alice gets up and slowly points his sword at Gray, but the other knight shouts at Gray to keep his eyes on him and pushes him back. Gray looks at Alice and thinks so this is the hero. He's still a kid and doesn't fit the image at all. He doesn't know how strong the hero is, but the guy in white armor is probably more skilled, as the two stand side by side pointing their swords at him. Gray understands Halsaria won't be back just yet, so it's going to be hero and holy knight versus him. He gets prepared to swing his sword, deciding for starters he'll put the hero out of commission. But right then, out of nowhere, the Holy Knight punches Alice in the face and knocks him to the ground, frustratedly telling him to back off. As he looks straight at Gray, he excitedly says he can take him by himself, and there's no need for the hero to get involved. Seeing that, the bishop yells at the Holy Knight, calling him Lundy, and asks what he is doing, but Lundy tells him to shut up. He irritatedly thinks a Holy Knight can't be seen relying on the hero to beat a mere adventurer. So then Lundy gets into a stance and tells everyone if he kills this adventurer before they take the saintess back, they should let him have her. Hearing that, Gray shouts at him, telling him enough. He'll send him to meet his god, so to die happy. As he lunges at him and swings his sword with everything he has, but Lundy hurriedly puts up his sword to block the attack, but the ground below him cracks due to the sheer force. Halsarius, scouting from atop a massive tree, notices the ruckus from a distance and mumbles, "That's a bit much." Then she hurriedly starts moving in that direction, leaping from tree to tree. Meanwhile, Lundy quivers and says crap as he finds it hard to keep up with Gray's insane amount of physical strength and wonders if this guy really is just an adventurer. Right then, the bishop shouts at Lundy, asking what he is doing after all the big talk and to hurry up and kill that man. At that, Lundy again tells him to shut up and pushes Gray back. He furiously tells the bishop if he doesn't shut his mouth, he'll kill him first, which frightens the bishop. Then Lundy frustratedly asks Gray where he is aiming, as Gray keeps rapidly swinging his sword, seeming to aim for unusual positions. Gray tells him with a horrifying grin on his face that people like him should be punished. As he thrusts his massive sword straight at his crotch, Lundy barely manages to block it and says "Dan." After that, he pushes Gray back and starts panting heavily due to exhaustion. Gray surprisingly thinks he pushed him back, even though he has strengthening magic on him. Then Lundy puts his sword behind him, telling Gray to die and calling him loony. He starts charging a skill, frustratedly thinking he finds it hard to believe he has to use his special move against him, but he's definitely killing this guy. As Lundy is about to rush straight at him using his skill Secret Arts Hidden Cloud, something suddenly comes flying straight toward him. Lundy looks down and finds that it's an arrow. He gets dumbfounded seeing that, and immediately Gray rushes at him and slices off his head with a single swing of his massive sword. The head falls to the ground and rolls toward the bishop. Seeing that, the bishop falls backward and screams in terror. Then he looks around and finds the other knights stunned and Alice still knocked out cold. The bishop terrifiedly thinks he doesn't want to die and wonders how he can get out of this. It seems he's finally about to face the consequences of his actions. Gray thinks he never thought Lundy would come at him with a move so full of openings. He was so surprised he missed a beat. Right then, Halsarius shows up behind him and tells him she's there, all done. Gray thanks her for the good work and looks at the bishop, saying he kept him waiting, it seems, and asks if he finished praying to God. The bishop trembles in fear and looks completely horrified, seeing that Gray asks what's with that face. He tells him with a devilish grin on his face they get to go meet their precious god now, so to be a little happier. Hearing that, the bishop hurriedly tells him to wait a moment. He should know that if he kills him, the church won't stay silent. He adds, "Oh right, he'll see to it that he gets paid. How about that?" But Gray tells him to forget it. Then the bishop asks how about women, and Gray tells him not interested, while Halsarius stares at him like she's watching trash. The bishop desperately continues with a position as a holy knight. With his skill, he could become the 4th seat, no, even the 2nd seat. But Gray tells him not to worry, they can settle this with reparation fees. Hearing that, the bishop nervously says, so he does want money. There's nothing wrong with that at all. One does need money to live after all, and shamelessly asks how much he would like. At that, Gray says how that's a funny thing to ask. He looks at the knights beside him and says with a grin on his face to let him see. He's already received payment for 4, which startles the knights. One of them stutteringly says he doesn't mean it, and the other drops his weapon, desperately telling Gray to wait. He won't lay a hand on him or his family again, so he begs him to spare him. But Gray asks why they are afraid. According to their church, if they follow the word of God and accumulate good deeds after death, they get to spend eternity living happily in a world with no starvation and war. So as long as they don't have a guilty conscience, shouldn't they be at peace with dying? And if there is something, they should die and atone for it. The knights hurriedly get up and try to run away from there, but Gray swings his sword at them and cuts off their heads, telling them he'll take their lives as recompense. Such a cheap price to pay. He wipes blood off his face, thinking he won't make the mistake of showing mercy to his enemies only to have them come after him later. Nor will he mistake what it is he needs to protect. At that moment, the bishop screams in terror, seeing the headless bodies fall to the ground, and begs Gray to spare him as he doesn't want to die. But Gray tells him he's got it wrong. He's not the one he should be praying to. Even God must be getting tired of waiting. Right then, Halsaria tells Gray to wait. Gray asks her what it is, and Halsaria says she thought she should give him these before he dies. As she brings a few pendants with the sign of the church, and seeing that the bishop stutteringly says those are, Halsaria tosses them toward him, telling him they're from the men he left as caretakers. She set his horses loose, so his carriage is useless too, and asks if he doesn't have teleportation stones. The bishop tries to grab the pendants, suddenly seeing them tossed at him, but immediately Gray swings his sword at him and cuts off his arm, and he cries out in pain. The teleportation stones also fall out, and Gray understands they are a magic tool that does what the name says. They're a single-use item with an awful cost-to-performance ratio. They're ridiculously expensive, and they can only teleport about 2 kilometers. And this guy was still going to try to run away using hidden teleportation stones. Then Gray again raises his sword while standing in front of the bishop, as he calls him a persistent bastard and tells him to just die already. At that, the bishop screams his lungs out, trying to tell him to wait, but before he could say anything more, his head rolls on the ground as Gray swiftly cuts it off. Then Gray goes up to the hero, telling him he knows he's awake, so to quit playing possum. Hearing that, Alice sits upright. After that, Gray tells him he has a few questions and to just answer. His name's Alice, if that isn't right. He heard them call him that. Alice says yes. Then Gray asks how old he is, and Alice replies he turned 13 that year probably. Gray surprisingly asks probably, as he thinks it's the same age as Ariamal. He's just a child. Alice says he was told that as a baby he was abandoned in front of the orphanage, so he doesn't know his exact age. Gray asks an orphanage in Storia, and Alice tells him no in Kodarl. Halsaria gets surprised to hear about Kodarl Kingdom. They know it's the country on the other side of Holy Storia, and a third of the country is covered in forest. So then Gray asks Alice what a kid from Kodarl is doing as the hero of Storia, and Alice explains. One day a group calling themselves emissaries of Holy Storia suddenly arrived at the orphanage as the bishop came toward him, saying with a smile, "So this is Alice Sama." He excitedly told him he is the hero chosen by Oracle, so to come with them to Holy Storia. Alice requested him to let his friends come with them too, but the bishop told him they can't take anyone but him to the holy city. Instead, Holy Storia will look after the orphans there. However, he added, even if he says no, they'll take him by force, in which case they cannot guarantee the safety of the others. Hearing that, a girl at the orphanage grabbed his shirt, calling his name, and looked at him as if she didn't want him to put himself and the others in danger. Alice worriedly called her Mia. He thought he doesn't know if these people will keep their promise, but if they'll take him by force anyway, he said he'll go. Hearing that, the bishop excitedly said wonderful, and told him then one more promise. If anyone asks where he's from, he is to say Storia, and as before, if he disobeys he can't say what will happen to the others, and asked if that's okay. After that, they took him out of the orphanage, away from the other kids, and straight to the Holy Church of Storia. Now Alice tells Gray the reason for coming to Bastok was to bring back the saintess chosen by the Oracle. He thought this Ariamal would end up the same as him, and Gray says so that's how it is. Then he asks Alice how well he can fight, and Alice says yes sir. From Lundy's training he became better than an average knight, but against a holy knight he wouldn't stand a chance. Hearing that, Gray glances back at Lundy's decapitated head and thinks so this is a holy knight. He expected someone more uptight. He understands Holy Storia's holy knights are famous even in Bastok. They have a strength-based hierarchy, and apparently 5th seat and above are given holy weapons. But Gray wonders what to do with this kid. He'd like to send him back to his hometown instead of killing him. At that moment, Halsaria yawns and asks at any rate if they shall head back as she's sleepy. Gray says yeah, and tells Alice to come on and stay at the inn that night. Alice says understood, while Gray thinks he'll have to consult with the kids before letting him stay at the house. Then Gray turns toward the bishop's fallen body and takes all the coin he had. Seeing that, Halsaria tells him with a disgusted look on her face, "Man, that's low." But Gray asks what, as he tells her corpses don't need money. It's an inconvenience fee, and Halsaria doesn't know what to say to that. Gray adds if they subdue bandits they can do as they please with their loot. It's the same concept. Halsaria says an inconvenience fee on top of reparations, and Gray says there are a lot of expenses. Halsaria says well, that's true. He'll need money to send the boy back home too, and Gray tells her if she gets it then not to say anything as he searches for more stuff. Then he finds more magic stones and Halsaria asks if he's going to sell them. Gray says nah, he'll use them to send the bodies somewhere. That way goblins or whatever will take care of them. After that he sends the bodies off and understands that judging from the way they were sneaking about to get to Ariamal, at the very least they didn't inform Bastok's authorities about it. After all, they'd surely have come in force if they had. As such, Storia can't make a big deal of it if they vanish. An individual of high standing, his guards, and the hero have gone missing. They could never say that. A bit later, as they reach the city, Gray tells Halsaria to go on ahead and meet up with Amelia and the others. He'll take Alice to the inn. Halsaria leaves, saying okay and telling Alice bye-bye while Alice bows. After that, Gray takes Alice to the inn and tells the inn owner the situation. Then he tells the old man he'd like him to let this kid stay there. He'll pay for 2 nights for now. The old man says yeah, all right. He tells Gray as thanks to trade stories of exploits with him. It's the middle of the night after all. But Gray takes Alice to his room, telling him the room's that way, and the old man irritatedly calls him. Gray tells Alice not to worry, as despite the old man's looks he's tight-lipped. Alice asks if that is so. Then Gray tells him all right to get a good night's rest as he'll be back in the morning, but Alice wants to tell him something. He thanks him for paying for the room and tells him he'll be sure to pay him back. However, Gray tells him no need. After that, Gray leaves him in the room and walks out of the inn. Then he rubs his shoulders because of feeling stiff and releases a sigh, thinking he's going to head home too. Some time later, as he reaches home, he finds Halsaria already there as she welcomes him back and tells him he told everybody what happened. Gray thanks her for that. Amelia releases a sigh and tells him saving the hero, honestly, he never changes. Kasha holds her shoulder and tells her now it's Gray, so they expected as much. Gray thinks he thought she'd get mad at him. Then Amelia asks him what he is planning to do with the hero. Gray says he'll consult with the kids, and if they don't mind, he'll stay with them for the time being. Alice was separated from friends back home, and there are a lot of concerns to address. But he'll start by gathering information. He's sure he'd like to see them, and he wants to make it happen. Amelia tells him she sees, and if anything else comes up to let them know. They'll help however they can. Gray thanks her for that and apologizes for troubling her so much. Hearing that, Amelia's face turns red. She nervously tells him, well, they're friends after all. No need to hold back. Then Gray says they should not stand around there talking and asks if they won't come in. They have tea and coffee. At that, Amelia flusteredly says no, that is, and Gray seems confused by that. At that moment, Kasha asks Amelia if she will give it up already, as she'll have to clear this hurdle eventually, and Gray gets surprised to hear hurdle. Amelia tries to muster up courage and tries to tell Gray something, but then she turns around and starts walking away from there, telling Gray no, she thinks she'll pass for that day. Kasha finds it hard to believe that she'd flee in the face of the enemy and tells Halsaria they should have a strategy meeting that day. Halsaria says what a pain, she'll only wimp out anyway. Kasha tells her not to say that and apologizes to Gray as they're heading home as well. Halsaria tells him laters and the girls head back to their house. After that, Gray gets back inside his home and finds Ariamal seated on the sofa. He goes up to her saying he's home and asks if she waited up, but Ariamal doesn't respond. Gray finds her asleep and mumbling something, so he wonders if she is having a bad dream. Then he picks her up and takes her to her room, thinking if only he could help her in her dream too. Meanwhile, inside her dream, Ariamal finds it's dark and cold, so she worriedly wonders where she is and what she is doing there. She looks around and thinks she'd better hurry home. Nina and the others must be hungry. She wonders if there was anything to eat. Ariamal understands she's the oldest, so she has to keep it together, but she wonders how she gets back. Right then, she gets frightened to think about home as she remembers the shack where they all lived burned down. Her mom and dad died. She met everybody and started a new life. They didn't have money or food, but the way they came together and supported each other was warm and happy. But then Ariamal realizes there's nothing left anymore. She remembers thugs breaking into their home and taking the kids away. Ariamal begged them to let the kids go, but the thugs pushed her back, telling her not to talk back. Lutz tried to stop a guy who was taking away Nina, but the guy kicked him in the head and knocked him out cold. Seeing that, Ariamal screamed. Then a thug grabbed her by her dress and told her to behave herself. Starting that day, she's a slave. She seems to be having a mixture of the events of the game and what would have happened in that reality without Gray. The leader of the thugs put shackles on her, beat her up, and abused her while Ariamal cried, saying she's sorry it hurts. They also gave her little to nothing to eat. After that, as they handed her to the Holy Church of Storia, the bishop told Ariamal she is the saintess chosen by the oracle, which shocked her. The bishop showed her Alice and told her this young man is the hero, also chosen by the oracle, so to get along well, the two of them. The leader of the thugs apologized to Ariamal without any sign of remorse, telling her sorry about everything before, calling her Saintess Sama. But Ariamal snapped and kept wondering what the hell, to give them back, to give everybody back. She started laughing like a lunatic and shouted out loud, praying for everyone to die, to be cursed. They should all suffer, and die. Ariamal feels shivers, remembering with those as her last words. She died by stabbing herself. Isuka, Fio, Lutz, Stala, and Nina. She apologizes to all of them. As she didn't protect them, she couldn't do anything. Ariamal feels it's so cold there and so lonely, but then she senses someone. She finds, oh, it's getting warmer. She remembers Mom, Dad, and wonders if she's in their embrace. At that moment, she slowly opens her eyes and gets surprised to find herself in Gray's arms. Gray tells her sorry and asks if he woke her up. He also asks if she was having a scary dream, as she was moaning a bit. Ariamal tiredly says she doesn't really remember, while thinking thank goodness, and Gray says he sees. Then he carries her upstairs to her room, telling her he said to go ahead and rest, but she'll catch a cold if she sleeps on the sofa. Ariamal apologizes and says there's something she just had to say when he got home. Gray asks something to say, and Ariamal replies yes. Then she calls him Gray-san and tells him with a bright smile on her face, welcome home, which astonishes him. Gray remembers in his past life, coming home was unbearably depressing. An empty house, but so many memories. Every time he thought of them, he felt a pang squeezing his head, and he hated it. Even though he didn't want to remember, it's not like he wanted to forget. Rather, they were memories he absolutely didn't want to forget, things he'd remember at random moments. Gray understands they were trifling things, silly things, so precious and warm. Even though there was no one to respond, he kept saying he's heading out and he's home. So he realizes that's it. The whole time, he just wanted a family. So then, Gray responds to Ariamal, telling her with a smile, yeah, he's home, which makes her really happy. And Gray thinks he wants to continue to be a family with these kids. That's how he feels. They all seem so happy living under one roof, like a family. Then Ariamal asks if everyone can sleep in his room that night, and she thinks the other kids have already gathered there. Gray says he sees and heads to his room. He finds that the other kids are already fast asleep on his bed. Then he carefully puts down Ariamal on one side of the bed. Ariamal thanks him for that, and drowsily tells him whenever there's room. Gray says yeah and pats her on the head, making her fall asleep. After that, he looks at all the kids sleeping together and thinks this bed is a bit small for the 7 of them. If he wants to see the kids' sleeping faces, he could buy a bigger bed. After all, he takes up by far the most space. But then he thinks, hang on, what if the little ones use him for a bed? Brilliant, he really seems to enjoy this. Right then, Nana wakes up and tugs his pants, as she says while wiping her eyes, Daddy potty. Immediately, Gray picks her up and takes her straight to the washroom, without panic, without haste, expeditiously. After Nana is done, Gray tells her good job, while Nana wobbles toward Gray, telling him to pick her up. Then Gray picks her up, pats her on the back to put her to sleep, and takes her back to the room. But then Gray finds that Stella has also woken up, and she tells him Papa, pee-pee. So Gray puts Nana on the bed, swiftly as a daddy, and picks up Stella, silently as a father. Then, as he proceeds to head down to take Stella to the washroom, he thinks after Nana was Stella, which means. At that moment, Gray looks behind him and finds Lutz already got down from bed and is fidgeting. So Gray tells him to hang on, as he'll be right back. But it's too late, as at that moment, Lutz ends up wetting himself, and immediately his tears start dripping from his eyes. At that, Gray hurriedly tells him it's okay, he'll wipe it up. He goes up to Lutz, tosses his wet pajamas aside, puts clean pajamas on him, and sets him on the bed, while telling him this is no big deal, it's okay, everything's okay. Gray keeps patting him, saying it's okay, and Stella repeats after him, while Gray thinks what's okay. Logic and reason won't get through to a small child who's crying, going into all that will only confuse them. After a bit, as Gray is done helping the kids pee and putting them to sleep again, he nervously thinks he's stuck. He needs to clean Lutz's pajamas that night or they'll stain. So then, he quietly slides out of the bed and quickly heads down with the wet pajamas in hand. By the time Gray finishes washing it, he looks out of the window and finds that it's morning already. After he hangs it outside, he drowsily thinks he's tired, but if he goes to sleep now, he'll fall prey to Nina and the others' morning mischief again. Therefore he lies on bed, and when it's time for breakfast, Nina sits on him and shakes him, telling him, "Daddy, breakfast time," and Stella pinches his face, telling him, "Papa, Ariane is calling him." Gray decides to be prey, as Stella and Nina keep trying to wake him up in their own way, and Gray exhaustedly says he'll get up. He's getting up. The next morning, Isuka wakes up early, wishes Gray a good morning, and tells him it's almost time for breakfast, so he should go wash his face. Gray says he'll do that. Then he goes to wash his face, while thinking he wonders what kind of relationship Isuka and Alice had in the game. The protagonist and the hero would have to meet, so companions, rivals, maybe even enemies. However that was in the game, it would be nice if they get along well now. So after a bit, as everyone is having breakfast at the table, Gray tells everyone to keep eating, but listen, there happens to be someone he'd like to look after there at the house for a while. He explains about it and tells them so he's asking them to be nice to Alice. He asks if they are okay with bringing him there. Hearing that, the kids look at each other. Then Nina asks new person. Lutz seems to approve of it. Stella shows a thumbs up. Ariel says with a smile she has no problem with it, and Isuka and Fio say they too. Gray thinks he left out the parts about the hero and saintess, the church and the holy night, as well as Alice's circumstances, but it would be a shock if they only said yes to avoid troubling him. After they finish breakfast, the little ones offer to carry dishes, and Ariel tells them okay, please do. So Isuka and Fio look at them and tell them to be careful not to get hurt as they carry the dishes. Then Ariel thanks the three of them for it and gladly tells them they were so helpful. Hearing that, Lutz, Stella, and Nina beam with joy. They hurriedly run toward Gray, excitedly telling him they did good. Papa, they finished, and Gray hugs the three of them together, happily telling them, oh, well done, as he feels touched and believes these are dad perks. After that, he heads out of the house with a smile on his face, but he goes to a shady tavern and enters it with a grim expression on his face. Immediately, all the guys there glare at him, but seeing that it's Gray, they think crap and hurriedly look the other way. Then Gray looks around the tavern but doesn't find that guy he's looking for. After that, he leaves and heads somewhere else. A bit later, he stops and annoyedly thinks always such a roundabout way to get in touch. As he finds a guy sitting on a park bench and peacefully feeding pigeons, Gray goes and sits on the other side of the bench. Then the guy tells him long time no see and how unusual for him to come to him. Gray tells him to skip the niceties, calling him broker, as there's something he'd like him to look into. The broker says indeed he went through all the trouble, so he asks what he shall investigate. Gray tells him he took in a boy from an orphanage in Kodarl who was with some Storia clergy. He wants him to know how the orphanage is doing. If it's gone, he wants to know where the kids there went. The broker thinks about it. Kodarl and Storia. As he says that's quite a broad area, so it'll be a bit expensive, and asks if that is all right. Gray asks how much, and the broker replies 200 gold up front, 200 upon completion, 400 gold total. Gray tells him he's got a deal and pays him the advance. Looking at it, the broker says it will take him a few days to investigate. Quite right. Then he gets up, telling Gray not to worry, he won't run off with the advance payment or anything. Gray tells him in a scary tone to do what he wants, as if he did do that, he'd chase him to the ends of the earth and kill him. At that, the broker says how dreadful, and he'd best make sure to investigate thoroughly. Then he disappears from there. After that, Gray heads to the inn, and the old man tells him, took him long enough, that lad was worried, wondering if he'd been abandoned apparently. He adds, he's just been waiting in the room, so to go on up. Gray says, right, and immediately heads upstairs. Seeing him there, Lena greets him with a smile, saying hello, and asks what brings him there that day. Gray replies he came to get Alice, the boy staying in that room. Lena asks, so if this guest was an acquaintance of his, and thinks about the name Alice. She asks Gray if he is going to live at his house too. Gray says for now, and asks if something about him bothers her. Lena says not at all, he doesn't seem like a bad person, but he's a bit glue. Right then, she stops and says he seems quite meek, while Gray realizes she started to say something else. After that, Lena tells him, well, she'll get back to cleaning, sorry to hold him up. Gray says it's fine, then knocks on Alice's door, and Alice tells him to come in. After that, he opens the door for him, and Gray apologizes to him as he took long, but Alice nervously calls him and Gray asks, "What's up?" Then Alice asks him with a really gloomy look on his face. If he is gloomy, Gray nervously thinks he shouldn't have asked Lena about him. After that, he takes Alice outside and tells him not to let it get to him. They're going shopping, they have to get him some everyday necessities, and Alice says, "Okay," while still looking gloomy. But after a bit, as they reach the shopping area, Alice seems excited, as he looks around him and says, "In Storia, he only went back and forth between his room and training. It's been a while since he went shopping," to which Gray says he sees. Suddenly, Alice sees a bunch of apples and stares at them for a bit, so Gray asks if he wants them. Alice takes on and says, at the orphanage where he was raised, on special days they give them small fruits for desserts. As the hero, they gave him high-class meals. But somehow the fruits they ate back then felt like a bigger luxury. He asks Gray if that is weird. Hearing that, Gray explains to him with a smile that, he should know, food eaten with family is always delicious, and asks if he didn't know that. Hearing him say that, Alice reminisces about the bright moments he spent with the other kids of the orphanage and laughs, telling Gray, "That's true, isn't it?" Gray understands, since he met the kids, he can't help but look forward to mealtimes. He's capable of anything if it's to protect this lifestyle. He believes he's so blessed that he can say that with certainty, as he says, they should buy some apples, and heads back home. As they reach home, Ariamel welcomes back Gray, then she looks at Alice, saying, "This must be Alice." He looks really nervous and doesn't know what to say, but Ariamel tells him to come on it, and Gray tells her, for starters, he'd like to do the introductions, so he asks if she would gather everyone. He also tells her with a smile not to worry about the bags and to pardon the intrusion. Ariamel says okay, and goes on ahead, saying she'll prepare tea as well, so she requests Alice to go on ahead and make himself comfortable in the living room. Then, as she heads inside, calling everyone, Alice asks Gray if that's Ariamel-san. Gray tells him yeah, Ariamel. The one Storia decided to call Saintess. She's a precious member of his family. Hearing that, Alice seems down, then Gray pats him on the back, telling him, "It's all right, come on," and Alice says, "Okay." As Gray takes him inside the house, he thinks he must be feeling guilty about being involved in the plan to take her away, so he'll have to help him clear the air at some point. After that, Isuka and Theo are the first to greet Alice, as they bow at him and tell him their names, but Alice finds it hard to meet eyes with each other. Seeing that, Gray wonders, oh boy, if this awkwardness is due to the relationship in the game, while Theo seems confused. Then the little ones trot toward Alice and eye him closely. Lutz starts sniffing him closely. Nina checks him from tip to toe, while Stella simply stares at him, and Alice doesn't know what to do. He helplessly glances back at Gray, gesturing to him to help him. But Gray pretends not to notice as he thinks sorry, he wants to watch a bit longer, and Alice seems shocked. Then Nina suddenly runs up to Gray, excitedly calling him Daddy, and Gray asks what's up. Nina tells him so. Nina is Aresh's Oni-shan, and everyone there gets speechless. Gray thinks he gets that Aresh is Alice. He gets that Oni-shan is big sister, but he doesn't get it. Then Nina points at Alice and adds Aresh is Nina's little brother, and Alice gets startled by that. That's totally kid logic. Alice asks her why she is the Oni-san, and Nina explains she came to home first, and he came to home after her. Alice still finds it hard to comprehend, but Gray thinks he sees the order they became family and says he got it, which shocks Alice even more. After that, Gray finds they've welcomed Alice into their home, but the children's reactions are varied. Ariamel and Theo are surprisingly dry about it. Isuka is talking even less than usual with someone he doesn't know there. Stella and Lutz don't get attached to just anybody, and have already lost interest in Alice. Nana seems to be debating whether to give her snack to Alice, but then Gray finds she ate it. After that, he goes up to Alice and tells him they should pick a room for him. Alice thanks him for that. Then he goes upstairs with him and points at a room, saying there, and Gray says okay. Gray tells him he should know that he doesn't need to worry about the other kids, so he asks why he'd pick a room at the end, away from everyone. Alice tells him no, it's nothing like that. He says with a smile being at the end is really soothing, and Gray says he sees, while thinking about it, the chosen hero. Then after Alice goes inside the room, Gray asks him if he's settled in, if he can join him for a bit, and Alice says okay. Gray tells him they should go outside, which surprises Alice, and he tells him yes sir, then heads to the backyard with him. Gray understands if they locate his orphanage friends, they'll probably leave. He can't force him to stay nor go with him. All he can do for him is help him get as much stronger as possible in the limited time. So then he asks Alice if he can use magic. Alice replies not at all. They did assign him an instructor in Storia, but Gray says he sees all right. He tosses him a stick as a dummy sword, telling him to take it, and Alice catches it. Then Gray tells him he'll spar with him. En garde. Gray thinks first he needs to evaluate his current strength, so he tells Alice not to hold back and to come at him. Immediately, Alice rushes at him and swings his stick at him with everything he's got, and Gray easily blocks the attacks, while wondering what he can do for Alice, who's fated to fight against the Dark Lord someday. Right then, Alice comes at him harder, and Gray uses both his arms to push him back, thinking simple, he'll bestow as much of the skills he's learned from being an adventurer as he can absorb. He finds that he has speed and an edge that makes it hard to believe he only took up the sword 3 months ago, but his movement is too linear, and his strikes lack weight. Gray thinks it could come from some reluctance to hurt his opponent. Sorry, but he needs to get used to it. As he thrusts at his stick and knocks away Alice's, telling him that's enough. The next morning, they'll go to the Adventurers Guild to get in registered and accept some quest or other, so after dinner that day, to go right to bed. Alice tells him yes sir, while Isuka stares at them from inside the house, standing in front of a window, and seems down. Alice releases a sigh and asks Gray if it isn't right that he's a B-rank adventurer. Gray tells him he's B+, yeah, and asks why. Alice asks if all B-rank adventurers are as strong as him. Gray thinks about his annoying friend at the guild, who is also a B-rank, and releases a sigh, saying nah, it varies. Then Alice tells him that Lundy often made him engage in mock battles at the training grounds to confirm his abilities. He couldn't hold his own, and he'd always laugh while humiliating him. Every time he lost, he'd say it's his fault for being weak. He kept wondering why he had to be taken away from the people he cared about and put in that situation. Hearing that, Gray feels really disgusted at Lundy and thinks yeah, killing that criminal was the right move. Then Alice desperately asks if he becomes an adventurer, if he can become strong too, and if he becomes strong, if he can be with Mia and the others again. Gray thinks that's hard to answer. Alice will definitely become strong, as expected of a hero. He might surpass him in the not-too-distant future, but he wonders if he can be with his friends. That depends on the information broker's findings. If the orphanage in Kodarl is still there, fine. If not, the orphans can be located. Even if they've been made slaves, he can just kill all of their owners. Basically, anything he says will be just consolation. Even so, Gray tells Alice with a serious look on his face yeah, so for now, just concentrate on getting stronger. Alice thinks about it for a bit, then he nods with a determined look on his face, while Gray thinks not because he's the hero, but for his own sake. After that, Alice gets up and heads back inside the house, saying alright, he'll go clean up before dinner, and thanks Gray for the spar. Then Gray enters the house as well and finds Isuka slowly walking away from there, so he calls him and asks what he is doing over there. Isuka gets startled by that and nervously reminds him about Fio and his training the next day. At that, Gray thinks crap, and tells him he'll be out on a quest with Alice until even the next day, and when they get back, he plans to train him until dinner. Hearing that, Isuka sadly says he sees. At that, Gray irritatedly thinks even if he's understanding, seeing his son's face like that is rough. That's why he tells Isuka he'll train him in Fio after dinner the next day alright, so they'll need to take a bath before bed. And hearing that, Isuka excitedly says okay. Gray realizes he has to train Alice during the time they have, but that's no excuse to neglect the other kids and tells Isuka right, they should head to dinner. At that moment, Isuka tells him with a smile he helped make dinner that night, and Gray surprisingly asks oh yeah, as he can't wait. But then he asks Gray if he washed his hands, which startles Gray, as he says oops, is bad, and hurriedly wipes the dirt off his head. That night after dinner, as Ariamal is heading for bed, she says she sees Let's wet himself the previous night, and Gray disappointedly thinks he didn't manage to hide it. Then Ariamal asks if it would be alright if she sleeps with them for a while, as she's concerned about the nighttime potty. Gray tells her sure if she's okay with it. He asks what if he used physical enhancement magic to take them to the toilet, but Ariamal tells him that's no good. It would increase the burden on him. Then she walks into the room, telling him with a smile to pardon her, and at that moment, as Alice was coming upstairs, he gets shocked to see that. The next morning, in the kitchen, as Ariamal is preparing breakfast, she asks Gray if he would get her a tomato. Gray passes it to her, telling her here you go, Ariel giggles and thanks him very much. But at that moment, Gray notices Alice standing near the door, staring at them, still looking shocked. Then Gray tells him morning. Ariel also wishes him a good morning, and Alice responds to that, stutteringly telling them good morning, which confuses both Gray and Ariel. Gray tells him breakfast is ready, so to go wash his face, and immediately, Alice rushes the other way, saying, "Right, they'll do that." He stomps toward the washroom as fast as he can. Seeing that, Ariel confusedly wonders what that was all about, and Gray says who knows. At that moment, Theo enters the kitchen, drowsily wishing Gray and Ariel good morning, and says Alice just ran past her in quite a hurry, so she asks if something happened. Ariel nods sideways, and Gray says no, he just came down while they were making breakfast. Then Theo asks Ariel if she slept in Gray's room the previous night, and Ariel replies yeah, she thought it would be good to do so for now, to help with Nina and the others going potty during the night. Hearing that, Theo says with a weird smile on her face she realizes Alice is definitely misunderstanding. Then she too heads off, telling them well, whatever, she'll go wake Asuka up. And Gray wonders what's up this morning. Ariel asks who knows. So Gray thanks Ariel, and he went back to making breakfast. They could hear Theo and Asuka bustling about upstairs, and around then, the little ones, not quite awake, made their way downstairs. They had a bit of a kerfuffle while washing their faces, as he acted like a father and washed their faces together, which seems really funny. So Gray finds it was an eventful morning, but breakfast with everyone gathered around the table is quite nice. Asuka being scolded by Theo, Ariel wiping Nina's face, Stella sneaking things she doesn't like onto Lutz's plate. Gray thinks with a smile, back when he was alone, there were many times he skipped breakfast. Now the morning isn't complete without this flurry of activities. But then he notices Alice eating by himself, looking gloomy, so he calls him. Alice says yes, and Gray tells him with a smile after breakfast to wash the dishes with him. He adds as long as he's living there, he'll join in the family chores, and Alice gets surprised to hear family. Right then, Nana raises her hand and tells Alice she will help too. Gray says Adabdural, and tells Alice Nina, Stella, and Lutz are good at carrying dishes, so they can count on them. Stella shows Alice a thumbs up, telling him to leave it to them. Lutz excitedly raises his hands. Asuka and Theo nod their heads. And Ariel gladly says well then, she'll leave cleanup to all of them, and start preparing lunches for the two of them. Hearing all of them say that, Alice's face turns red, and he happily says okay. And after they're done cleaning dishes, as they leave for work, the kids wish them to have a nice day, and Alice and Gray tell them see them later. After that, as they head for the Adventurers Guild, Gray wonders if he should have Alice register as an adventurer under a fake name. But Alice asks if it is alright to register under a fake name. Gray tells him there are also others who do it, but basically he can't change it once he's registered. The name will accompany him for his entire adventuring career, so put some careful thought into it. Alice says he sees, while Gray looks at his sword, thinking he bought a short sword for Alice at the weapon shop. The one he used previously would have been fine, but he's planning to give it to Asuka. After walking for a bit, he says there they are. This is the Adventurers Guild. Gray tells Alice to go on in. He wants to get in registered and do a few quests that day as quickly as possible. Alice says yes sir. Then they enter the Adventurers Guild, and Gray tells Alice to get in line there, as he's going to check out the quest board, and to join him when he's done. After that he goes to check the quest board, thinking he wants Alice to get some accomplishments under his belt while he's with him. Alice can probably take on a hobgoblin or orc on his own. He'd like him to experience fighting alone against multiple enemies. But Gray understands that he'll be starting at E rank, so it would be good to form a party. But no one would out of nowhere invite a rookie E rank. He believes anyone who does can't be trusted. Rather, with him around, that's not going to happen, as he's the town nuisance. Gray thinks wolves would be the perfect target for Alice to take on. However, they have strong survival instincts and won't attack someone stronger than them. They'll avoid him if he's there, so he surprisingly wonders if he's actually the one in the way. Right then, Alice calls him and tells him with a smile that he finished registering. Gray gets surprised to see that he didn't change his name. Alice says no, this name is the only thing the parents whose faces he doesn't even know gave him after all. Gray says he seized, and tells him with a smile for starters, they'll take the ever-present goblin extermination quest. He asks Alice if he has any experience fighting goblins, and Alice says many times. On the way there he's also fought orcs. So Gray tells him no need to get into the nitty-gritty then. They should line up at the reception. Right then, his annoying friend shows up there and asks Oi, "What's with the brat?" And Gray gets surprised to see him. The adventurer friend mockingly asks if it could be that lonely Gray wanted party members so badly that he tricked a rookie into joining. At that, Gray irritatedly asks what it looks like, as he's obviously training a rookie, and as usual his eyes and ears and mouth are nothals. Then he mockingly adds saying yeah, some self-styled B-rank party leader's level is just so low. Recently he went weak in the knee from being handed a mere Elder Orc's head. Gray asks if they would believe it, as at this rate it could affect the quality of adventurers as a whole. They should know he had no choice but to take action. The adventurer gets really infuriated by that, but then he grabs Gray's collar and starts crying, frustratedly asking what he said, which startles Alice. Right then, one of the guy's party members calls him leader and tells him to quit playing around, and they should get going. They've been preparing for this for days, and the guy says he knows. Then he leaves Gray alone and heads toward his party member, still looking infuriated, and Alice nervously asks who that was. Gray tells him he just wants attention. He picks a fight every time he sees him, but he thinks that said he was holding a quest form for an Elder Orc, so he wonders if he came to tell him about his first extermination. After that, they take a quest form to Sasha, and seeing Alice, she says the new rookie, so she asks if he's an acquaintance of Gray's. Gray tells her yeah, he's in charge of training him for a while. Sasha asks if that's so, and tells Alice if Gray's with him, an extermination quest is nothing to worry about. Then she signs the form for them and hands it back to Gray and Alice, telling them with a smile here they go, and to take care, the two of them. After that, the two of them head to the outskirts of Bastoke, but as they're walking through the forest, Gray suddenly tells Alice to stop, and Alice surprisedly calls him. They quickly hide behind some bushes, then they slowly peek out as they find a bunch of goblins. Alice says they're heading toward Bastoke, and Gray says he's got a good eye. He tells him when the three get close, to kill them swiftly before they can put up a fight or call for help. Alice nods his head and carefully grips his sword. Then as the goblins get close to him, Alice quickly rushes out and swings his sword at them, which terrifies them. But before they could even understand what's happening, Alice takes them out in the blink of an eye and wipes his sweat, asking Gray how it was. Gray says there's no issues in particular. However, compared to the previous day's training, his movement was different, in a good way that is. Unlike a human opponent, there's no hesitation when swinging his sword. Alice tells him with a smile he's amazing, and explains even though it's practice, when he thinks about the possibility of hurting someone, it's awfully scary, but he doesn't feel anything with monsters. Gray thinks, well, it's completely different with humans than with monsters, but he'll need experience for when he meets humans he should fight against. He wonders if there are any suitable bandits around, and tells Alice they should go. Those goblins were probably scouts. They go around to human towns and villages in advance to find out if they can attack. Alice says in that case, they won't attack a town of the scale of Bastoke, and asks if it wouldn't be fine to leave them. However, Gray says with a terrifying look on his face if they lay eyes on Bastoke, they might as well already have targeted children. Alice seems scared by that. Then Gray says with a devilish grin on his face goblin scum must be eliminated. He puts his hand on Alice's shoulder and tells him he will, that is. Alice gets surprised by that. Then they both hear some kind of screeches coming from a direction, and Gray tells Alice there they are. But Alice asks if there aren't rather a lot of them. The two of them move forward and find one general sitting in the middle, 4 hobgoblins standing right in front of him, and about 50 or so regular goblins. Gray says he'll fight too. He'll take out the one in the middle and the attendants on either side, as well as 2 of the hobs. He asks Alice if he can manage the rest, and Alice worriedly asks if that many. Gray adds he'll start by drawing their attention, so if he has to whittle away their numbers from the back, a lot will make a run for it, so Alice says he gets it, so they'll let them run away and reduce how many they have to fight. At that, Gray asks what he is talking about, as he's wrong. He tells him not to let a single one of them escape, which shocks Alice. Then Gray steps forward, saying they should, and Alice hastily goes after him, telling him to wait. All of a sudden, the goblins hear some noisy chatter, and they all turn toward the direction the noise is coming from. They all get surprised to find Gray there, standing on a rock, saying he thought he smelled the stench of goblins, and tauntingly telling them to come at him. They should play. Immediately, the goblins get all rowdy and start screaming out loud in anger, while the goblin general sneers, seeing all that. The low-level goblins keep getting more and more furious. At the same time, Alice gets into position behind them. Then suddenly, one of the hobgoblins roars out loud and rushes straight at Gray, aiming his spear at him. But right as he gets close to him, Gray grabs the spear, moves beside it, and swings his sword at the hobgoblin at lightning speed, telling him with a creepy smile on his face too slow. Immediately, the hobgoblin is taken down. After that, another hobgoblin comes at him fast and lunges at him, but Gray stops him by grabbing his arm with his bare hand, and then he swings his sword at him and takes him down at once, which terrifies the other goblins. After that, Gray turns to the goblin general as he pulls out his massive blade, and Gray thinks even after losing numerous subordinates, he bears no grudge against the man before him. The goblin general was merely delighted, but Gray too readies his weapon and tells him with a devilish grin on his face, "Ha, if that isn't the face of a warrior." He understands that they had killed numerous humans too, so the goblins, increasing their numbers and defeating humans, held no meaning. Right as Gray and the goblin general rush at each other, the low-level goblins try to run away from there in terror, but out of nowhere, they start getting struck down. Alice comes out of hiding and rushes at them with everything he's got, as he starts swinging his sword without mercy. The goblins scream and try to run the other way, but Alice lunges at them and continues taking them down, thinking it's a pity he can't observe Gray's fight, but he can't let these guys get away. He understands that if he fought this way against knights, he'd probably be called craven, cowardly, dastardly, but who cares about fair and square or noble, as he keeps slicing through the goblins with ease. After a bit, as all the high-level goblins are taken care of by Gray, he wipes his sword while thinking the goblin general still looked thrilled even after losing an arm. After that, only a few hobgoblins remain, so Gray believes he can leave all the hobs to Alice. He should have almost no experience in practical combat, but he's skilled. It looks like a few days will be enough. Right at that moment, another weaker goblin lunges at him from behind, but Gray takes him down without even looking at him. After a while, as every single one of the goblins there is exterminated, Gray tells Alice all right to go around and gather their ears, and Alice tells him yes, sir. Then Gray walks up to the goblin general's corpse, takes out his hunting knife, and starts collecting something. Seeing that, Alice nervously asks what he is doing, and Gray tells him he figure he'd go ahead and take some valuable materials from this guy. They're not as good as an elder orc's, but they'll fetch a high price. That's so gross. He adds it'd be good for him to remember that, while Alice seems shocked to hear that, and stutteringly tells Gray yes, sir. Gray continues scraping and scraping, while Alice finds it hard to watch, so he covers his eyes. Right then, something snaps, and Alice thinks he can't bear to look, but that was probably one coming off. After that, Gray also cuts off the goblin general's head and giggles with a terrifying smile on his face. This one's a souvenir. Then he continues scavenging for items, while Alice nervously wonders who it is for, and slices off a bunch of goblin ears. After a bit, Gray asks if he got the goblin's ears, and Alice replies yes, sir, he just finished gathering them. Gray tells him good, he'll report to the guild that he killed them all. But at that moment, he pictures Sasha's angry face and thinks they'll think he's a brute who threw a brand new adventurer into a pack of goblins. He understands this is bad. Why it is bad? Because that's exactly what he did. So Gray tells Alice no, he'll handle the report, sorry, and Alice confusedly says yes. Then Gray hands him a few coins and nervously tells him Sasha's probably going to give him an earful, so they get a drink of milk or something at the guild's bar to kill time, which confuses Alice even more. Sometime later at the guild, Sasha asks Gray with a scary look on her face if he threw a rookie into a pack of goblins, as she calls him a brute. And she puts on a pair of gloves, telling him he should know that giving all of the credit to Alice, getting him a first-day rank up, that's a pretty suspicious situation. Gray tells her she seems dubious, but Alice actually did take down most of them, and adds, mumbling, he did give him support, while Sasha gets to checking the ears. She brings out 2 of them and asks even a goblin warrior, and at that, Gray remains quiet. Sasha tells Gray right, then this is going in his assessment. Even without it, Alice will rank up though. Gray tells her she should know putting it in his assessment is meaningless. Sasha says true and asks then if he will take the exam this time. Gray replies not interested. After a bit, as he's done taking the quest completion reward, he heads back toward Alice, but he finds 2 girls beside him. They are crowding close to him, as one of them calls him a cutie and asks how he would like to team up with them. The other girl asks if he isn't a rookie. They're D rank, so they can take on all kinds of quests. Meanwhile, Alice looks really uncomfortable and is tremblingly trying to drink from his mug. Gray thinks they're soliciting him and wonders if he should help him out, while the girls keep getting closer to him. At that moment, Alice notices Gray there and gestures to him for help. At that, Gray thinks even though he had so much verve when facing the goblins. Then he goes up to him and tells him sorry to keep him waiting, they should head home, and Alice gladly says yes sir. The girls get startled to see him, as they say it's Gray, and worriedly ask if this kid's with Gray. Then the two of them walk away from there in a hurry, as one of them nervously says not getting involved, and the other girl tells her to stop pulling her jacket. Looking at the two of them leave, Gray disappointedly says he should have stayed out of it, which surprises Alice. After that, as they head back home, they find Amelia standing at the front door, trembling and muttering by herself. Cash is so cruel, making her deliver a souvenir out of the blue. She wonders what she should even say, how he has been, or something. She seems really frustrated. Right then, Gray asks her what she is doing, and Amelia screams out loud. She hurriedly looks at him and asks if it's Gray, as imagine meeting him there. Gray confusedly says yeah, sure, while thinking that's not really something to say to someone on their own doorstep. An adventuring party whose name has been spread to the capital, Valkyrie, a soon-to-be S-rank group of beauties who have even cleared the garden, that apparently even royals have their eyes on. He wonders what their fans would think if they saw their leader acting so suspicious. Then Amelia tries to maintain her composure and asks incidentally if he is the one. Gray tells her yeah, this is Alice. Well, he's just a victim of Storia. Amelia says she sees, while Alice looks nervous. Amelia tells Alice with a smile to allow her to introduce herself. She's Amelia, an adventurer based in that town. And Alice excitedly tells her she's Valkyrie's. He's just starting out as an adventurer in that town as well. Amelia tells him if there's anything he doesn't know, to feel free to ask, though it's probably a needless concern since Gray's with him. Alice bows before her and thanks her very much. After that, Gray quickly proceeds to head inside, saying they should not just stand around talking, and tells them to come in. But he gets surprised to find Ariamel standing right there. Ariamel stutteringly welcomes Gray home and tells him she didn't mean to eavesdrop. It's just... And Gray understands that with Amelia acting suspiciously out there, she must have been concerned whether to greet her or not. So he says he gets it, and asks if she would make tea for their guest. Ariamel says yes, right away, and tells him she'll take his lunchbox. She takes it and quickly heads back inside to evade all that awkwardness. But Alice stands there still holding his lunchbox, so Gray wonders what about his. After that, they all go inside the house, and Amelia greets the kids. The kids surprisingly say it's Amelia-san, while Alice takes his lunchbox to Ariamel. Then the kids continue playing, and Gray asks Amelia if Kasha isn't with her that day. Amelia replies yeah. Kasha seems to have gotten advice from other members and is doing something else that day. Then she says all right, there. She opens the box she brought with her and shows it to Gray, telling him a souvenir, to eat this with the kids. Gray sees that it's cake and thanks her for it. He says once Ariamel brings the tea, they can all enjoy it, and asks Amelia if she won't join them. Amelia asks if she can. Gray tells her of course he'll get plates. And Amelia excitedly thinks all right, Gray's happy. At that moment, Ariamel shows up with tea, saying tea is ready, and gets surprised to find Gray heading toward the kitchen. Gray tells her Amelia brought cake, so he'll get plates and forks, but Ariamel says that's right, she'll get them. She explains that she was just about to prepare snacks, so she's already gathered dishes, and she made plenty of tea so there'd be refills available. Amelia amazedly thinks she's formidable. Right at that moment, Amelia says out loud to let her help with something too, please. Ariamel hurriedly tells her no, she's a guest, and requests her to have a seat. While Gray goes up to the kids and tells everybody to gather at the sofa, they're having cake. Immediately, Nana runs ahead, excitedly saying cake. Stella goes after her. Lutz gets on Gray's shoulder and starts drooling. Fio says she'll help Aria, and Asuka says he'll go call Alice. At that moment, Gray finds Amelia still telling Ariamel no, she wants to help, but Ariamel says it wouldn't be right to ask that of a guest. Gray thinks he feels like Amelia's been acting a bit strange since returning from their expedition. Right then, as Amelia tries to continue insisting, she suddenly stops. She finds Nana and Stella staring straight at her, which makes her nervous, and she starts sweating. Then the two little girls hold Amelia's hand, take her to the couch, and make her sit on it. After that, they run straight back to Gray and sit beside him. Then Amelia says for a second she thought they'd accepted her offer. Gray tells her nah, they are happy to have her there. Amelia asks if that's so, while Ariamol and Fio finish getting the plates ready. Then they serve the cakes to everyone there, and Ariamol tells everyone with a smile, all right, time for cake. Everyone gets excited to hear that and digs in, while Amelia surprisingly thinks so fast. After that, everyone enjoys the cake together and finds it amazing, especially Stella, as she really enjoys sweet stuff. Amelia is also enjoying a piece. Then she finds Gray telling Nana to come there, she's got some on her face, as he wipes it with a handkerchief and asks if it is tasty. Nana continues eating and makes an affirmative sound with a really happy look on her face, and Gray says that's good. Then he looks at Amelia and gets surprised to find her smiling, so he nervously asks what. At that, Amelia giggles and tells him she was just thinking that he really is being a father. Gray thinks about the really part, and Amelia tells him not to take it the wrong way. She doesn't mean that it's surprising or that it doesn't suit him. She explains that in fact she's never seen him more in his element. Gray says he sees. Right then, the little ones finish their share of cake and show him the empty plate, wanting more. Gray tells them he doesn't mind sharing his, but he glances at Ariamol. At that, Ariamol says, geez, just this once, okay. Hearing that, the kids get really happy. Ariamol gives her share to Stella, telling her but only half, okay, here she goes. At that, Stella giggles. Amelia gives her share to Nina, telling her she too there. And Nina excitedly says yay, while Gray hands his share to Lutz, reminding him he should know that he still has to eat dinner. As the little ones are enjoying the cake, Isuka offers to share with Fio, telling her then his too. Fio asks if really, as not to mind if she does. But Fio finishes all of it in one bite. Isuka gets shocked to see that and asks what she is doing. Then Alice offers to share with him, asking if he would like his. And Isuka hurriedly tells him no, not to worry about it. At that moment, Nina goes up to Amelia and extends her hand toward her, and Amelia surprisingly asks what it is. Then Nina thanks her with a bright smile on her face, calling her Oni-chan. And Amelia gets thunderstruck to see her cuteness. She holds her hands, nervously telling her she's welcome. And seeing that, Gray thinks he finds it hard to believe that Nina would even bring down the strongest adventurer in Bostock. Way to go. After that, he finds just like that, Amelia went on to help with dinner, and Nina enjoyed staying close to her. Gray finds that Amelia played with the kids too, and thinks it looks like they're getting along quite well, but Amelia's bad at cards. He wonders how many times she pulled the joker. Then he realizes it's nearly bath time already, and it's gotten late, so he asks Amelia if she would like to stay the night. Amelia gets startled to hear him telling her to stay the night, and her face turns red. Then she nervously says no, she couldn't, she should go home. The little ones immediately clung to Amelia and begged her not to leave yet because they still wanted to play. Their desperate expressions completely shattered her resolve, and before she knew it, she had agreed to stay longer and continue playing cards with them. Later, Ariamol informed her that the bath was ready, but Amelia insisted on going last. Meanwhile, Gray took the little ones for their bath, and before long, Nana began nodding off beside him. Even when Gray suggested going to bed, Nana sleepily mumbled that she wanted to stay with Amelia Oni-chan. Soon Stella and Lutz were already asleep, and Nana followed right after. Once Amelia finally finished bathing, she returned wearing a borrowed nightdress, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Alice was so flustered that he immediately wished everyone good night and fled the scene. Amelia thanked Ariamol for lending her the pajamas and admitted that having everyone stare at her was a little embarrassing. While Gray awkwardly looked away, Ariamol openly called her beautiful, causing Amelia to blush bright red. Seeing her reaction reminded Gray of the rare times she had actually become shy after receiving a compliment. As bedtime approached, Ariamol carried Stella while Gray picked up Lutz and Nina. Amelia then asked if she could carry Nina herself and carefully brought the sleeping girl upstairs. Watching the scene, Gray realized that Amelia had completely fallen for the children. After settling them into bed, Ariamol suggested that she, Amelia, and Nina sleep together that night. Amelia happily agreed, though she found it slightly odd how much emphasis Ariamol placed on the words that night. Before leaving, Amelia looked back at Gray and softly wished him good night, and Gray returned the greeting. The next morning, Gray woke up early and found Ariel and Amelia already preparing breakfast. Wanting to help, he offered to cut the vegetables, while Amelia volunteered as well. However, Gray quickly reminded everyone that swords were the only blades Amelia could properly handle, joking that she could probably split a chopping board in half with a kitchen knife. The comment left Ariel shocked and amused, while Amelia quietly retreated to set the table instead. As breakfast preparations continued, Gray noticed several lunch boxes on the counter and learned that Ariel had even prepared one for Amelia. Remembering how he had once unexpectedly canceled the need for lunches, he apologized for causing her extra work, but Ariel simply smiled and explained that she always tried to avoid wasting food. Then Gray thanks her as he's always grateful to her, which surprises Ariel, and she happily says sure, she's always grateful to him too. She adds everyone is, of course he should know. At that moment, the others also wake up and come downstairs. After breakfast, as the adventurers are preparing to head out, Ariel hands Gray, Alice, and Amelia their lunches, and Amelia surprisingly asks when she managed to make lunch even for her. At that moment, Nina sadly tells Amelia to come again. Okay. Stella tells her see her, and Lutz also seems down. Amelia tells the kids yeah, they should play again, and tells Ariel thanks for taking care of her, even sending her off with a lunchbox. Ariel happily tells her not at all, she had fun too, and she hopes she'll tell her stories again. However, Gray wonders what's got Amelia looking so uncomfortable. He finds that Alice has been seeming a bit off as well, and thinks it might be a good idea to have a talk with them individually. Then as the three of them head for the Adventurers Guild, Amelia tells Gray it's a good thing, family, and Gray asks if that isn't right. Amelia says for the first time in a long while she misses her parents and sisters, not that they'd have any interest in seeing her. But Gray tells her nah, he thinks it'd be good. He knows that Amelia's father is a noble in a certain land. As the third daughter, Amelia was set up for a political marriage, but she was having none of it and ran away from home. Kasia has been her friend since she was born and was closer than her own sisters, and apparently ran away with her like it was the obvious thing to do. After a bit, Amelia says well, she's going another way, and apologizes for showing up out of the blue the previous night. Gray tells her no problem, by all means to come over again. The kids would be thrilled, so she's welcome anytime. Then Amelia leaves, telling Gray and Alice she'll see the two of them at the guild later. Gray turns to Alice, telling him they should get going, but then he gets surprised to find him sweating heavily. So he asks what's up, and Alice stutteringly asks what kind of relationship he and Amelia have. At that, Gray annoyedly wonders why everybody is so interested in that stuff, while Alice wonders if it could be something like polygamy. If it's Gray-san, it could be possible. Gray realizes it's been 6 days since Alice became an adventurer. During that time, he's handled a varied assortment of quests. Versus goblins, versus trance, versus orcs, versus bandits and criminals. It seems his rank isn't appropriate to the quest's difficulty levels. Incidentally, running into strong monsters at the quest destination happens all the time. Gray giggles and thinks Sasha makes an exasperated face every time though. He also realizes Alice has become accustomed to fighting against human enemies, overcoming his initial anxiety, but he does still seem to find it more difficult compared to fighting monsters. Gray thinks along the way he's been teaching him how to tell medicinal herbs apart and what monster parts have value. It's pretty important for adventurers, and a good way to earn enough for daily expenses. Gray understands, and Alice isn't the only one improving. Isuka has fixed his habit of closing his eyes when he swings his sword, paying close attention to his opponent's movements. Also, the previous night marked a turning point. Fio finally managed to manifest magic. She seemed really astonished by that, but then, seeing just a tiny flame, she said this isn't it at all. Maybe her imagery isn't good enough. However, Gray thought honestly, he didn't expect her to improve this much after such a short time. He thinks he's happy that they are improving, but when he thinks that they are that much closer to becoming adventurers, it's a complicated feeling. Right now, Alice is giving Sasha a report about the orc they accidentally ran into and slew. Later that day, Alice returns to the guild and shows the monster ear to Sasha. Seeing that, Sasha releases a sigh and says receipt acknowledged, and glares at Gray while he avoids her gaze. After Alice's work is done, he goes up to Gray, and Gray says okay, they should head home. But right then, someone calls out to Gray. It's the annoying adventurer from before, who asks if that kid will actually improve if all he does is small jobs like goblin slaying, as he proudly says they just got back from slaying an elder orc. At that, Gray says, oh, so he lost his elder orc slaying virginity it seems, and tells him here's a new objective for him to aim for. As he tosses another monster head at him, the adventurer and his comrades get frightened to see that it's a goblin general's head, while Gray walks away from there, thinking maybe he'll give him a manticore's head next time. After he and Alice walk out of the guild, Gray suddenly notices two pigeons standing on the ground in front of them. Then he tells Alice he just remembered he has some business to take care of, so to head home first. Alice seems confused by that but says okay and heads for home, while Gray heads another direction, realizing it might be the end of Alice's stay with them. After that, he meets the broker in a secluded alleyway, and the broker tells him with a smile, hey there. He apologizes for keeping him waiting. It took a bit longer than he expected. Gray tells him it's fine and asks, so. The broker says, right, first of all, the orphanage in Codarl is gone. The place it used to be in is now the Filler Company's new store. Gray thinks as he recalls it consists of a few of that country's wealthy merchants. But he heard that the Filler Company's president and his wife died in an accident a few years back. He doesn't know the details, but a relative took over, so he wonders if it truly was an accident. However, he says it isn't unusual for a company to open a branch in another country. The broker asks if that is so. Then Gray asks, more importantly, what about the children who live at the orphanage? The broker replies the children are all alive in Storia, as slaves though. Gray thinks at least it wasn't the worst possibility. He asks if slavery isn't illegal in Storia, and the broker says, on the surface, yes. The nobles and some of the clergy keep slaves for themselves though, which irritates Gray. Then he asks, in that case, where can he find the piece of human filth who keeps those kids as slaves? At that, the broker tells him he should know that his blood list is showing. He adds, the slave merchant's name is Xanus. He presents himself as a normal merchant, but behind the scenes he provides illegal goods to the nobles and clergy in exchange for various accommodations apparently. Gray says, Xanus, got it. The broker further adds, Xanus seems to be making arrangements to flee the country. Gray gets surprised to hear that as he asks why someone in his position would want to flee, and the broker informs him a coup d'état occurred in Storia. Gray gets worried to hear that, as he understands Storia should have the Holy Knights. It's said that even if normal knights gauged up, they would not be a match for one. He fought one himself, a man called Lundy or something. If there are more like him, a coup d'état would be difficult. So Gray asks where the Holy Knights were, and the broker explains the leader of the Holy Knights, Lysen, and over half of the Holy Knights were behind the coup. They waited until all of Storia's important people were gathered. Then their own bodyguard Holy Knights drew swords on them and took over the cathedral. It was over in an instant. Gray tells him he describes it as though he saw it himself. At that, the broker laughs and says, well, who knows? Then he continues, apparently, merchants with ties to the executed upper echelon are also being singled out for execution. Gray says he sees, so that slave merchant Xanus is in fear of his life. He tells the broker in a furious tone that he does not give a damn about Storia and to fill him in on that bastard's current situation. The broker informs him he's currently on the move toward their country with all of his possessions. Gray gets surprised by that as he says that's an awfully convenient coincidence and asks if the kids are among his possessions. The broker replies they are. Rather, they're his main concern. The hero's family is a trump card to him. Gray seems irritated to hear that. He says, in other words, he knows that Alice and the priests came to Bastoke, and the coup d'état had to do with the hero. The broker says, well, it was likely one of the reasons. It's a convincing justification after all. So Gray wonders if he should wait. Then he thinks with a devilish grin on his face, nah, that won't do. He's coming all the way to town. It wouldn't be proper not to greet him, would it? At that moment, the broker asks with a smile if his report was to his satisfaction, and Gray replies indeed. He hands him the remaining coins, and the broker thanks him while taking them and says he looks forward to future transactions. But as he proceeds to leave, Gray calls him and tells him there's one more thing he'd like him to look into. After a bit, he's heading somewhere, thinking, 3 wagons, Xanus, servants, and bodyguards for a total of 12, plus 5 children. That's a pretty big procession. He knows the route they're taking as well. This information cost him an extra 50 gold. He realizes it wasn't cheap, but it's to ensure that he rescues the children. Xanus has his belongings with him. He can recoup his losses. After that, Gray reaches the Valkyrie's party house. Seeing him at the door, Halsaria surprisingly says, "Whoa, it's Gray," and Gray tells her sorry to drop by unannounced, but he needs something. Halsaria tells him it's fine to head to the conference room. Then he quickly heads ahead, calls Leader and Kasha, telling them Gray's there. He goes to the conference room, informs the Valkyrie members what happened, and tells them he'd like to borrow a wagon. At that, Halsaria tells him without any hesitation, from any angle, he'll be the bandit attacking a merchant, and Gray asks if that is so. Kasha agrees, saying, well, they can't deny it, can they? And Amelia nervously says she thinks it's very Gray of him, so it's fine, which both stab him. Then Amelia tries to regain her composure and tells him in a serious tone they'll have a wagon ready for him the next morning, so to just wait until then. And Gray thanks her for the help. He adds she's been helping him a lot lately. Truly, thank you, and if there's anything he can help with, he requests Amelia to ask. At that, Amelia says with a smile, then she supposes she shall. Amelia giggles and teasingly questions what she should ask for. Gray smiles and tells her to go easy on him, while Kasha and Halsaria seem stunned. Then Kasha frustratedly says, hey, so things went well the other day after all, and asks if they kissed that morning. Amelia says she keeps telling her, it's not like that. And Halsaria tells her to be grateful for Kasha's meddling. After that, Gray walks out, thinking the children from the orphanage are alive. He could take Alice with him to deal with Xanus, but it would not be good if the pursuers from Storia found out where he is. He believes he'd best take care of it by himself. The problem is that he won't likely be able to return the next day. Gray thinks anyway that day he will just play with everyone to his heart's content. A hero, strong and kind, possessing the indomitable will to overcome adversity and the courage to stand against any foe. An existence everyone admires. Raised in a backwoods village, a boy named Gray aspired to be a hero and began to dream of becoming an adventurer. When he was only 9 years old, one day he suddenly came face to face with a wolf and aimed his knife at it, stutteringly telling it to stay back. At that moment, a man hiding behind a tree near him in the forest saw that and released a sigh. He thinks he's going to get eaten. He would not earn a penny from saving him. He has to worry about earning his daily income. It's not at all unusual for a child to fall prey to monsters. Then the wolf lunges straight at Gray, roaring out loud, and Gray covers his eyes tightly in fear. But before the monster could reach him, the man rushes forward and slashes it with his sword, forcing it back, and thinks, damn it, it's a pain in the back, but he can't just watch him die. He believes it won't take long to take down one wolf. While Gray is sitting on the ground, panting heavily from exhaustion, more wolves come out from behind bushes and trees, growling and furiously looking at the man. The man gets anxious to see that and calls himself an idiot. He irritatedly says he sure drew the short straw, but still he glances back at Gray and finds him trembling. So the man dashes straight at the pack of wolves, shouting, there's no turning back now. The man screams out loud and starts swinging his sword at the monsters with everything he's got, striking them down one after another. Seeing him tearing apart a bunch of the beasts so brutally, the rest start hesitating and then scurry away from there. Then the man plants his sword in the ground and exhaustedly says, saved. After that, he sits on his back and says, man, that was a really close call. This is why they should stick to what they are used to. But he looks at the corpses and adds, well, if he takes their fangs to the guild, it should cover that night's booze. At that moment, Gray slowly walks up to him. Seeing him, the man surprisingly says, oh, so he's still there, and tells him to hurry home, as he won't save him if he's attacked again. Then he thinks, now that he gets a look at him, what an evil-looking brat. And Gray tells him with a sincere look on his face, thank you very much, and bows before him, which startles the man. Then he looks at him, adding that his name is Gray, and asks if he would be so kind as to tell him his name. The man replies, Rand, he's a D-rank adventurer, and tells him not to worry about remembering it, as it's not like they'll see each other again. Then he gets up and goes to the wolf corpses to salvage valuable materials, saying, now then, fangs, fangs. This is the moment when Gray decided to become an adventurer. Attacked by monsters and terrified, in the instant he had accepted his death, a stranger stood against monsters to protect him at the risk of his own life. The memory of his back would stay with Gray for the rest of his life. That was what he wanted to become. Years later, Rand is wobbling while walking down the street, but he keeps drinking alcohol. Seeing that, other adventurers whisper among themselves while pointing at him. That guy's drinking again after only taking an easy job. They do not want to turn out like that. That's the guy known as the eternal D-rank adventurer. While Rand annoyedly thinks it's not like he's bothering them, so they should just leave him alone. He remembers when he was young, he too dreamed of becoming a hero, so he became an adventurer. But reality isn't kind. Betrayal, failed jobs, friends dying. Rand thinks he's thought of giving up so many times, but with no other skills, he doesn't think he could make it doing anything else. Right then, someone calls him by saying, "Excuse me, drunk guy." Hearing that, Rand turns around and asks, "Who?" Gray, who's standing there, tells him with a smile that he thought it was him, calling him Rand-san. Then Rand remembers him and surprisingly says he is from that time. He asks if he's Gray, as he sure has grown. Gray tells him thanks. After he saved him, he started learning the sword and how to read and write from folks in the village so he could become an adventurer. Rand gets shocked to hear that. Then Gray excitedly asks if he is free and if he will tell him about adventuring. Hearing that, Rand stands there stunned for a moment. Then he walks away saying, "What a pain in the back. Well, he's in the middle of errands right now, so to go home whenever." And Gray says, "Okay." From then on, whenever Gray ran errands, he sought out Rand to listen to all sorts of things about adventuring. And Rand always acted like it was a pain in the back, but for him, who had nowhere he belonged, talking with Gray, who was attached to him and always started conversations, was not an ordeal. One day, while talking with Gray at a local tavern, Rand suddenly gets up from his chair, saying, "Hang on, gotta pee." Gray says, "It was just getting good though." He irritatedly tells Rand he drinks too much, and Rand frustratedly tells him to shut his yap, calling him a kid, as he heads to the toilet. He still wobbles on his way there, while Gray looks at the alcohol bottle and says he's always drinking the cheapest booze, then sniffs it. Immediately, he holds his nose tight as he finds the smell awful. Right then, another adventurer comes up to him and calls him. He tells him with a smile that he has been talking to Rand a lot lately and asks what in the world they talk about. Gray tells him he wants to become an adventurer too, so he's just having Rand teach him all sorts of things. The adventurer and his buddies find it amusing and tell him to give up on that guy. Following an eternal D rank around like that, no matter how much talent he has, he could get stuck at D rank too. At that, Gray tells him he doesn't know how respected of an adventurer he is, but Rand saved him when he was in danger and being attacked by a monster. Even though there would be no reward, so Rand is his goal. Hearing that, the arrogant adventurers remain standing there speechless. And Rand, who is listening to him, finds it surprising. He thinks with a smile that people wouldn't normally put so much weight into it just because they were rescued once. Though he doesn't think that glare is necessary, as the arrogant adventurer gets frightened to see the look on Gray's face. After that, the adventurer and his lackeys walk away, irritatedly saying that there he was giving him some friendly advice and telling him to suit himself. Rand releases a sigh and returns to Gray, telling him, "Sorry it took so long. The restroom was crowded." Gray tells him he doesn't need the details, and welcomes him back. Then Rand asks if it isn't right that he still has some time that day, and tells him to come with him for a bit. And Gray asks, "Where to?" Rand tells him with a smile he's going to teach him the trick to finding medicinal herbs and how to tell them apart. As if he can do that much, he'll always be able to scrape by. Hearing that, Gray excitedly asks if it's for real. Then he tells him, hey, to wait up as he's paying the bills and is about to leave, and Rand tells him, yeah, to hurry up. After that, as the two of them head outside, Rand wonders why he's remembering now his parents' faces when he first told them he wanted to be an adventurer. As they said, "Oh, they see," and asked him, well then, if he will become a respectable adventurer and go surprise the two of them. Rand excitedly told them yeah. Rand understands they both cheered him on, but shortly after he became an adventurer they passed away from illness. When he was a kid, he believed he'd become a great adventurer without a doubt, so he wonders how he turned out like this, broken, giving up, despondent. Rand realizes he won't be able to face his parents like this. Then he remembers Gray and thinks it might be too late, but he wants to give it one more try. From then on, Rand worked hard and made it to C rank. However, while on a job, he saved someone under attack from a monster, and the wound he received at that time led to his death. He was interred in the cemetery on the outskirts of the city. At that nameless gravestone, the cheap liquor a certain C rank adventurer favored was left as an offering every year. Now, the story a Holy Knight's fifth seat, Scrad, along with his knight squire, chases after Xanis on horseback, saying that according to the information from above they should soon catch up with their target. He adds that apparently he's hired a wanted spear user as a bodyguard, and they have the magic item they were entrusted with. But he tells his squire Meyer not to let his guard down, and Meyer tells him with a smile that he knows to just leave it to him. He seems really pumped up and rushes forward on his horse, and seeing that, Scrad realizes he's not getting it. Meanwhile, Xanis is rushing straight to Bastok with his possessions, desperately thinking, just a bit more, just a bit further, and they'll cross the border. Then the pursuers won't be able to lay a hand on him. The guard he hired is supposed to be quite capable, but he's uncertain how he'd fare against Holy Knights. In the unlikely event that Knight Commander Raisin or Deputy Commander Castor shows up, it's checkmate. Xanis pulls his own hair, thinking trash. He's been providing perverted nobles with illegal goods for years, so he frustratedly asks, a coup, what a thing to go and do. In Storia as it is now, members of the previous establishment with underworld ties are being caught one after another. At this rate, he'll be executed too. Then he thinks, screw that, he won't come to an end there. Xanis understands that the reason for the coup is related to the disappearance of the bishop's party along with the prophesied hero. Of all things, it had to be one of his regulars, but he still has hope. He thinks, such bad luck. The brats who used to live with the hero. For just such eventualities, he made sure no one laid a hand on them. Fortunately, he knows where the bishop's party went and why. A party with holy knights in tow won't go down so easily. The hero, if he can just find the hero, he can use the brats for negotiations. Right then, all of a sudden, the carriage stops, which worries Xanis. He hurriedly looks out, asking if they have caught up, and finds his guards drawing their weapons at a man standing in their way. One of the guards shouts, "It's a bandit, to arms." But immediately, Gray swings his sword at him and slices off his head. Then he asks with a scary look on his face who they are calling a bandit, as if they don't know an adventurer when they see one, which shocks everyone, and they seem terrified of him. Xanis wonders, what the hell, if it's a former high-ranking adventurer who had his credentials stripped. However, he thinks he has an accomplished mercenary whom he paid generously under the table. In the past, he got into trouble with the noble he worked for and killed their private guard, and presently has a bounty on his head. His capabilities are on par with holy knights. Xanis believes the limited strength of a mere bandit is of no consequence. As the mercenary walks out of his wagon, walks up to Gray, and swings his spear at him at an insane speed, immediately, Gray steps back a bit. Then the mercenary thrusts his spear at him, and Gray hurriedly puts his massive sword in front of him to block the attack, and the spear grazes past his sword, making a loud screeching sound. But before Gray could swing his sword at him, the mercenary quickly turns around and thrusts his spear at him again, and Gray barely manages to block it as it gets really close to his face. Seeing that, Xanis gladly thinks, all right, he knew he was right to hire him as a bodyguard. But then he notices something's wrong. He finds the mercenary shaking as he can't move his body and worriedly wonders what's going on if they have the upper hand, while Gray looks at the mercenary with a wide grin on his face. Then immediately 2 guards rush at him from behind from 2 sides, swinging their swords at him, but they too freeze before hitting Gray. After that, out of nowhere, they all fall to the ground. Xanis gets terrified seeing all that and anxiously wonders what just happened, while Gray looks at them all with an evil look on his face. He sent out invisible shackles at his enemies and used them to tie them up and make them fall to the ground, while they are desperately struggling trying to break free. Xanis wonders if it's bind. Then he gets horrified to find Gray strike the mercenary with his sword and kill him. The guards there also get horrified to see that and cry out loud, desperately telling Gray they don't want to fight him and begging him to spare them, while Xanis keeps thinking, shit, shit, shit. After Gray is done taking care of all the guards, he shows up right inside Xanis's wagon and says in a terrifying tone, "Found him," and asks if he isn't the slave merchant Xanis. How good of him to offer up his own neck, while Xanis finds it impossible to speak. Then Gray tells him he'll have plenty of time for that in the world beyond, so not to bother with confessions or prayers. Then he slices off Xanis's head and thinks, their numbers match the broker's information. That broker said the bodyguard was supposed to be skilled, but that spear user was weaker than Lundy. Gray looks through Xanis's belongings and finds this magic bag is higher quality than his, so he decides he'll give it to Alice when he gets back. Valuables, medicine, he'll take it as an inconvenience fee. But as he comes out of the wagon, someone asks in surprise, "What in the world happened here?" Scrad stands there between the corpses and asks Gray if he is solely responsible for all of this. Gray asks with an intimidating look on his face, and if he was. Scrad looks at him closely. Then he says, well, honestly, he doesn't care, as they were facing the gallows anyway. At that moment, Gray thinks he can't see them, but there is someone there. Magic or a magic item, it seems. At any rate, it's troublesome. He understands if all they are after is Xanis, then this might work out somehow. But if he's after the kids, battle is the only option, as he readies an attack. Right then, Scrad tells him, oh, pardon him, he hasn't introduced himself yet, has he? His name is Scrad, a holy knight of Holy Storia, and he tells Meyer to show himself, as it would be rude not to introduce himself. Meyer gets shocked to hear that and frustratedly asks why, while Gray stops readying his attack. Scrad tells Meyer in a serious tone, now, the Knight Commander asked him to see to his well-being. If he's too contrary, Meyer says, all right already. He puts away a cloak that was making him invisible and irritatedly tells Gray he's Meyer. He can tell he's a holy knight from looking at him. And Gray tells him he's Gray, an adventurer. Meyer calls him out, telling him he's not buying it. However, Scrad says he certainly does appear to be an adventurer, so he can suppose that. But that doesn't matter. Meyer frustratedly says no, but it does matter. But Scrad ignores that and asks Gray what it is he's after. Money? As this is their job more or less. In response, Gray asks, and if he's not obliged to tell them. Hearing that, Scrad seems skeptical of him. But then he says very well, they'll excuse themselves, and asks if they may collect the merchant's corpse. Gray tells him to help themselves, and thinks that they sure backed off easily. Meyer desperately asks Scrad to wait a minute, if he's seriously just going to let this bastard go. Scrad checks Xanis's corpse, telling him he's to comply. Thus their objective is already fulfilled. They must return immediately with their report. Their objective is to capture Xanis or render justice on the spot. At that, Meyer annoyedly says, fine, but keeps staring hard at Gray. After Scrad is done packing up Xanis's corpse, he gets out of the wagon, glances one more time at Gray, and then walks away along with Meyer, carrying Xanis's corpse on his shoulder. While Gray releases a sigh and thinks he doesn't know if he'd have been able to face those two without collateral damage. A bit later, Meyer asks Scrad if he will at least tell him why. Scrad asks, why what? Meyer tells him, obviously, the reason he let that guy go. Scrad asks if he's asking why he let him go as if he thinks he could beat him. And Meyer says, obviously, nobody can beat two holy knights by himself. He arrogantly adds, much less against Scrad, the fifth seat, and him with the cloak of hiding for a sneak attack. It would have been a piece of cake. But Scrad understands that if he had attempted a sneak attack, Meyer would be dead now. After all, though he doesn't know how, Gray was following Meyer's movements almost perfectly. Meyer didn't notice that at all, so if they had fought back there, even if they won, it would have come at a great cost. He himself wouldn't have been guaranteed to survive, so Scrad tells Meyer to prepare himself. When they get back, he's going to hammer the basics into him again. Meyer gets shocked to hear that and asks, what, but why? After that, Gray goes inside the wagon where the kids are being held with their legs chained up, but they get terrified when they see him. Gray thinks crap, he forgot to put away his sword and clean off the blood. Right then, the eldest girl screams out loud, telling him she doesn't care what happens to her, but she begs him to leave the other children alone. But Gray says he's actually there to help them. At that moment, the kids' stomachs grumble. Then Gray brings out an apple and asks them if they want it. The kids seem skeptical of him, but a small girl starts walking toward him. The eldest girl worriedly calls her name Luliko, but the small girl goes up to Gray and asks if she can have it. Gray tells her yeah. The girl thanks him and starts munching on it. Then Gray says one apple is not enough. He has a wagon nearby with enough food for all of them to eat their fill. The eldest girl worriedly says, but at that, Gray tells her that if they stay there, they'll just fall prey to monsters or bandits. Then he says he's with Alice. Hearing that, the girl hurriedly asks Alice if he knows Alice. Gray tells her a lot happened, and now he's living with him. Hearing that, the girl gladly says she sees. Alice is okay, thank goodness, and Gray thinks he should have mentioned Alice from the start. Then the girl tells him her name is Mia. Alice and she grew up in the same orphanage. She guesses they'd say they're childhood friends. Gray says she sure believed him easily and asks if it didn't occur to her that he might be trying to deceive her. In response, the girl says that there isn't any benefit in deceiving kids like them. Gray says he sees and tells them to wait there, as he needs to do some cleanup. Then he steps out of the wagon. He starts picking up the bodies of the men he took out and hides them inside bushes while thinking about what Mia said. Taken from the orphanage and forced into slavery, it makes sense that they'd think so little of themselves. Gray realizes it was a stupid question. As the sun starts to set, he finishes up and goes back to the kids. Maya tells everyone with a smile that they are going with that man and that Alice is waiting for them. The kids get excited to hear that they get to see Alice and Nechan again. Then, as the kids head inside the larger carriage Gray brought with him, Gray thinks that Alice was like a big brother to these kids, though Nana apparently sees him more as a younger brother. After everyone gets inside, Gray sits in the driver's seat, picks up the reins, and starts driving the wagon forward, thinking that he can't wait to get home to his kids. After traveling for a while, Gray glances back into the carriage and finds the kids already asleep. So he goes inside and puts blankets over them. But suddenly, some men shout from outside, ordering whoever is inside to come out of the wagon. They laugh and say that if they behave themselves, they'll let them live. At that, Gray frustratedly thinks the children are sleeping, damn it. But then the men start hitting the wagon, shouting for them to get out because they're not patient people. And Gray thinks, damn it, this is a borrowed wagon. Meanwhile, the kids wake up and seem terrified. Maya worriedly calls out to Luluko, as she appears especially traumatized and starts trembling in fear. Saying no and calling for her daddy and mommy for help, Maya tries to explain to Gray, in the past but Gray tells her she doesn't need to say it. It's not something she needs to remember. Then he uses a spell on them, telling them it's all a dream and to just go back to sleep. When they wake up again, the dream will be over. After that, the guys outside excitedly shout, attack, and laugh out loud. But at that moment, Gray giggles with a devilish grin on his face, saying from there on out, it's grown-up time. The carriage is surrounded by bandits. One of them amusedly tells the others, hey, they're threatening them too much. They're too scared to come out. The guards are cowards too. Another guy says, such a nice carriage. They should make at least one woman their slave instead of selling her. Then he shouts, telling them to listen up and hurry up and get out. He irritatedly adds not to make him go through all this trouble. But right then, Gray quickly opens the wagon door and grabs the bandit by the head. He walks out holding his sword in his other hand and tells them with a terrifying look on his face, hey, they've been noisy for a while now. And the bandits get shocked to see him. Then Gray swings his sword at the guy he's holding and cuts off his head in an instant, telling everyone, how dare they scare the kids. The other guys get horrified to see one of their comrades getting killed so easily. The guy at the front falls to the ground and hurriedly tells the others to kill this guy. Right then, Gray kicks him between the legs so hard the ground under him breaks and tells them they will die. The guy screams his lungs out. Seeing that, the others hesitate to step forward. But before they could decide what to do, Gray swings his sword at them and cuts off a bunch of heads at once. He also uses his skill bind to take out a few who are trying to escape. One of the guys starts running like he's never run before, terrifiedly thinking that if they knew that monster was there, no one would have gone near them. But Gray catches up to him in the blink of an eye and asks if he's escaping, calling him trash. The bandit screams out loud and hurriedly tells him he's never going to lay a hand on them again, so he begs him to let him go. However, Gray pins him to the ground and tells him with a scary look on his face that because of them, there will be more kids like Luleko. They've stolen so many things up until now, haven't they? So it's their turn next, right? The bandit is horrified as Gray looks at him with an evil look on his face. After some time, as the wagon rattles steadily along the road, Lulueko slowly opens her eyes and thinks she had a scary dream. At that moment, Gray opens the door and asks in surprise if she's awake. Then he tells her they'll be there soon, so she can still sleep, as he'll wake her up when they arrive. Then Gray closes the door and Lulueko slowly falls back to sleep, wondering what kind of dream it was. After that, they all reach Gray's home. Alice gets shocked to see them and calls out Mia and everyone else. Mia also calls out to Alice and runs straight toward him. Alice holds her and says, thank God, she's safe, and Mia says that's what she should have said, as he suddenly disappeared and she was worried. Then the two of them hold each other tightly and start crying, while the others also shed tears of joy. At that moment, Ariamel tells Gray with a smile that she'll take a look at what she needs for this number of people. Gray tells her, please do. But then Nina confusedly asks if they are happy. Gray goes up to her and tells her that's right. They've always wanted to see their family, so he's sure they're happy. Then Gray pokes her cheek and Nina lets out a puff of air. But it hurts her, so she starts rapidly smacking Gray. Stella and Lutz also run up to them. After that, Gray hugs Nana and tells her he's sorry. He also hugs Stella and Lutz, saying he did something really bad. Then they all make pouty faces, showing that they are in a bad mood, and Isuka and Fio nervously try to tell the three of them that Mr. Gray also has work. Gray understands that humans are beings who can endure things. Only with a strong will, able to control oneself and not give in to desires, can one truly be human. Back at home, Gray tries his best to make it up to the kids after being away. Even though he wants to shower them with affection, he knows leaving again would only make them sad. Still, he can't resist playing with them, poking and squishing their cheeks while Nina, Stella, and Lutz happily cling to him and beg for more attention. Watching the scene, Isuka points out that all three of them are clearly in a great mood. Fio then teases Isuka, claiming he's been watching them with envy the entire time. Even though Isuka insists he's too old for that sort of thing, Fio drags him over to Gray anyway. Before long, Gray is poking Fio's cheeks and even squeezing Isuka's face, leaving him embarrassed despite secretly enjoying it. As everyone continues having fun together, Alice approaches Gray alongside the children from the orphanage. After hearing everything from Mia, Alice sincerely thanks Gray for rescuing all of them. Gray simply smiles and tells him not to worry about it. To him, helping family is only natural. Looking at the children's happy faces, Gray can't help wondering what kind of future awaits them. No matter how difficult things become, he silently vows to protect them and walk alongside them no matter what lies ahead. A little later, Ariamel reports that with so many extra children in the house, they'll need additional food, dishes, and bedding. Gray promises to pick everything up after returning the borrowed carriage. Just as he's about to leave, Nina immediately grabs his attention and excitedly calls for him again, making it obvious how attached the little ones have become. Meanwhile, Fio notices Ariamel pouting for some reason. The moment she points it out, Ariamel rushes off to the kitchen while awkwardly insisting that nothing is wrong. As Fio watches her flee, she suddenly realizes Ariamel might actually be jealous after seeing Gray pamper everyone else. She quietly points this out to Isuka, who immediately decides it's safer not to get involved, realizing the situation has become way too amusing. Later, Gray heads to Valkyrie's party house to return the carriage he borrowed during the rescue mission. Looking at the damage it suffered along the way, he starts wondering how exactly he's going to explain it. Upon arriving, he's greeted by Halseria, who is somehow hanging upside down outside a window as usual. After directing him inside, she goes to gather the others. As Gray waits in the conference room, several Valkyrie members pass by and react awkwardly to his presence. While some of the hostility from the past seems to have disappeared, a few members are still clearly uncomfortable around him. Soon afterward, Emilia arrives carrying cookies, Kasia brings tea, and Halseria joins them with snacks before everyone takes a seat. When Emilia asks how things went, Gray reveals that the rescue was successful, and all of the children are finally safe. However, he casually mentions something far more concerning. During the mission, he ended up crossing paths with two holy knights. Hearing that immediately grabs everyone's attention. Realizing there is clearly a much bigger story behind what happened, Emilia asks him to explain everything from the beginning, while Halseria starts dozing off with her hand still resting on the cookies. Kasia says from what she heard, the paladin with glasses looks pretty skilled, stronger than the last person. Halseria asks if he was the one castrated before he died the other day. Kasia asks, "What? Castrated?" Halseria says yep, Gray did. Gray tells her she was the one who shot Rondi's groin, but Halseria says she did it according to his instruction, and Gray frustratedly says he was a fool to ask her. Then he continues, on his way home he was attacked by bandits and the carriage was damaged, so he's really sorry. Emilia asks if that is so. Gray tells her yes and asks what the repair cost is, but Kasia tells him she doesn't need money. Gray says well, but then Kasia tells him with a stern look on her face to pay with his body. Emilia feels a powerful whiplash by that and stutteringly calls Kasia. Gray tells Kasia that because of the kids, if it takes too long or is unreasonable, it's impossible. And Kasia says it's okay, she understands. She just needs his help this time. Hearing that, Emilia feels dumb as she asks, "What?" So if that's what she meant, she totally thought of something naughty. Then everyone gets up, and Kasia tells Gray she'll tell him the details next time. Gray tells her to call him any time and heads out of the estate. Kasia also heads out of the room, wondering with a devilish grin on her face what next. Maybe she should leave them alone, and Halsarius says, "Whoa." Kasia has a bad look on her face. After a bit, as Gray is walking home, he thinks about Amelia's request to borrow the carriage and Kasia's request to borrow the carriage. Her request in particular gives him a strange feeling. He notices a kid walking down the street with her mother while holding a balloon and thinks it's enough that the children's faces puff up. Then Gray stops at a fruit shop, and the fruit seller tells him with a smile, "Oh, welcome." Gray tells him as always sorry, and the fruit seller tells him not to worry about it. He always tells him that, right? He adds that there are some good apples that day. Then Gray asks for 2. He remembers Alice reminiscing about old times, saying that at the orphanage he was at, small fruit was served as dessert on special days. So Gray tells the seller to wait, he'll buy 8. The seller packs them up for him, and Gray says as always thank you. He believes that day is also a special day. He'll cut them up and serve them as dessert after a meal. Gray thinks besides, he gave an apple to Lutz, and the sight of him happily biting into it is something he could watch for the rest of his life. Ariamol will get angry if he feeds them too much though. He understands next is bedding, and come to think of it, the Coder group's clothes are still in tatters. He wonders if there are enough rooms. Above all, he needs to ask the children themselves what they want to do. It's annoying, but it seems he should ask the innkeeper for advice. After that, he returns home and says he's home. Ariamol welcomes him back. She thanks him for going shopping and asks if he would like some tea. Gray tells her yes, please. Then he goes to the living room where he finds the kids there together, talking with each other. But Gray notices they seem to be split into 2 groups and knows it's obvious that it's difficult to become friends suddenly. So he walks up to Alice's friends and tells them with a smile that they are free to stay. They can continue living with them. And Mia thanks him very much. Then Gray finds Lutz reaching toward the vegetables on the kitchen counter and tells him he's going to prepare dinner now. At that moment, Mia nervously calls out to Gray and Ariamol and sincerely requests them to let her help too. Hearing that, Gray glances at Ariamol, and Ariamol says with a smile that at times like this, it's really hard not being able to do anything, so she gladly asks Mia if she could please cut the vegetables for her. Mia immediately says yes, and another kid comes up to them, telling them to let him do it too. At the same time, Fio calls Nina, Stella, and Lutz and excitedly tells them they should set the dishes. Nina says okay as the little ones excitedly run up to her. 2 of Alice's friends come up to Fio and nervously tell her they too anything. Fio surprisingly asks if really, then she asks them to lend a hand and make sure Nina and the others don't drop the dishes. Looking at all of them work together, Isuka tells Gray they're just statues it seems. Gray has tea and says, well, they should leave it to them that day. Isuka confusedly asks where Alice is. Right then, Alice tells him, right next to him, as he's standing on the other side, which startles Isuka, and Gray thinks he didn't notice at all. He explains to Isuka that Alice might have a skill relating to hiding his presence. He should know that it's quite valuable. Then Alice says he's not happy at all. Hearing that, Gray tells him sorry and asks if he shall bring a desk and chair from the storeroom. After having dinner, Nina excitedly thanks for the food, and Ariamol gladly tells her, yes, well done. She asks if what big sis Mia made wasn't delicious, and Nina says, yeah. But then she tells her she should know that Mia is Nina's little sister. Big sister is Nina. Mia seems confused by that. Then Nina points to her and the other kids from the orphanage, telling her everyone came home after Nina, so everyone is little sister and little brother. Mia surprisingly asks if she's saying it's by order of when they came to the house, and Alice tries to explain to her, this is, well, what it is. Since she came after, Mia is the little sister and should call Nina big sis. However, she acts annoyed, saying she'll be Nina's little sister, but she won't be his little sister, as she's 1 year older. Looking at them, Gray gladly thinks it looks like everyone is getting better. Then he takes the bag of fruits he brought and walks up to the kitchen counter, telling the kids to wait a little bit. He takes out the apples and starts slicing them one after another. Then suddenly, Ariamol shows up beside him. She picks up an apple and knife to cut it, telling Gray with a smile she hopes everyone will be happy. Gray says yes, that's right. Then Fio also comes up to them and surprisingly asks apples as she wonders what the 2 of them are doing. Ariamol tells her, yep, Gray bought them, and Gray says it's an after-meal dessert. Alice gets surprised to hear that. Then Gray tells him that day is also a special day, so maybe they could all eat some apples together. Hearing that, Alice gets all emotional. After Gray is done slicing the apples, he looks behind and finds Luluka standing there, and she extends her hands toward him. Gray understands that for Nina and Stella, this would mean hug me, and for Lutz it would mean give it to me quickly. However, Luluka tells him she'll help too. Gray thanks her for that and asks if she can carry this with him as he extends the plate toward her. Luluka agrees to do that. She grabs one side of the plate while Gray holds most of it. Then the two of them slowly take it toward the table together. Then Nina excitedly says she helps too, and Stella tells Ariamel she too. Ariamel happily says Nina and the others are good at carrying plates and asks if she should ask them for a favor. Stella tells her to leave it to them. Then Ariamel extends another plate toward them while holding it on one side, asking if they can bring this together. Nina and Stella grab the other side. After that, the three of them slowly carry it toward the table while Ariamel tells the kids, "That's right, good job." Luluka stares at them. Seeing that, Gray comes up to her and tells her she was good at carrying things. It really helped him out. Luluka nods and makes an affirmative sound, looking a bit shy. Then she walks away from Gray, while Gray thinks what a good kid, she shouldn't be scared of him. He recalls that since his family passed away, he always cooked for himself. Things like wanting to save money or recreate his mom's cooking were not the reason he started cooking. When he was home alone, he had to do something, or he just couldn't calm down. Gray realizes his cooking skills have improved considerably compared to when he first started. Even so, everything he said thank you for the food before he started eating, but he found it wasn't fun eating meals alone. Now, as the kids are eating the small fruits together, Gray goes up to them. Stella offers him a piece, and Gray enjoys it along with everyone. Then he thinks that after cleaning up is done, they take turns for bath time. Afterwards is bedtime, so he asks Mia if she wants to use Ariamel's room since the place is well cleaned. Ariamel's in his room, so it's not a problem, but Mia gets shocked to hear that, and Alice hurriedly tells her absolutely not that, to read the room, while Mia finds it hard to comprehend. Seeing that, Theo says with a nervous smile that Mia misunderstood too, and Gray seems confused. At that moment, Nana sits on the floor as her eyelids are getting heavy, and Lutz starts swaying while holding Gray. So Stella tells Gray that Nina and Lutz are sleepy. Gray picks Lutz up, saying, "Yeah, all right," and Ariamel holds Nina, telling both of them to look. If they sleep in a place like that, they'll catch a cold, so they should make it to the room. Right then, Gray notices Alice still struggling to explain the situation to Mia, while Isuka and Theo are standing behind them. So Gray asks the two of them if he can ask them for a favor. Theo replies, "Yep," showing him a thumbs up, and Isuka wishes him a good night. After that, Gray and Ariamel carry the little ones upstairs to put them to bed, while Gray wonders if everyone isn't sleepy, as the rest of the kids also gather around Alice and Mia. The next morning, as Gray wakes up, he finds Nina sleeping peacefully with her feet on his face. He puts that aside, then steps out of bed, puts the kids back in position, and pats them on the head. After that, he heads downstairs, finds Ariamel already in the kitchen preparing breakfast, and wishes her good morning. Ariamel also wishes him a good morning. Gray tells her she's up early that day too. Ariamel says they have to make more than usual. Gray apologizes to her for always burdening her, but Ariamel tells him no, she does it because she likes it. Also, everyone helps her, as Theo, Isuka, Mia, and Alice come inside the kitchen, though Alice's presence still seems to be fuzzy. Theo wishes Ariamel and Gray good morning and excitedly asks what she should start with. Ariamel says Theo is so enthusiastic, how reassuring. Theo says with a big smile on her face that day is a unique day. Isuka woke up early. Man, Big Sis is so happy. At that, Isuka tells her to stop it as it's embarrassing. Then Mia nervously says she thought she could at least help out by cooking and asks if maybe she disturbed them, which surprises Gray. He tells her she went out of her way to come and see him, so there's no way he thinks she'd be a nuisance, and wonders why she would think that in the first place. At the same time, Isuka asks Theo if she isn't going to correct them, as if things continue like this, management will continue to be confusing. Theo says maybe one day it won't be a misunderstanding. Then she starts making squealing sounds, trying to hide her laughter, saying that he's still good friends with Amelia, so she wonders what will happen, and Isuka seems concerned. Sometime later, as the kids finish their breakfast, Nana calls Gray and tells him, seconds. Gray tells her alright to eat lots. Stella also shows him her bowl and tells him seconds for her too, and without green peppers. Gray is about to do as she says, but immediately Ariel stops him, telling him that's not good, and Gray says yeah, is bad. After that, Stella tries to put the vegetables in Lutz's bowl, telling him she'll give him the green peppers, and Lutz's face brightens up with joy. But Ariel stops her. She tells Stella that she promised to try food she doesn't like once every 3 days, yet she hasn't seen her eat them. At that, Stella seems annoyed, and Lutz feels down. Ariel then turns toward Nana and happily tells her that Nana is the older sister, so she can eat them properly. Right then, Gray uses his skill body strengthening, takes his hot dogs, grabs Stella's green peppers using his magic, and puts them in Lutz's bowl, which makes him really happy. Gray thinks with a smile, alright, he's safe, but Ariel immediately calls him out and tells him she said not to do that. Gray tells her he's sorry. After that, he looks at Luluko and finds her staring at him. So he tells her and the others that if they want more, they shouldn't hesitate to ask, as there's still a lot left. Hearing that, Luluko gets down from her chair and walks up to Gray. Then she asks him for seconds. Gray tells her of course and refills her bowl for her. Then he gives it back, telling her not to spill it. Luluko thanks him for that. After that, more kids line up in front of him and ask with smiles for more food. Gray happily refills all of their bowls, as there's a ton of food, and tells them to eat lots. After a bit, all of a sudden, someone knocks on the main door. Ariel surprisingly asks if it is a guest, and Nana runs toward the door, excitedly saying, "A guest." But Ariel immediately picks her up to stop her, telling her to look first. Nana desperately tries to free herself, saying it's big sis Amelia. Fio and Isuka pick up Stella and Lutz before they run off toward the door as well, and Gray says no, he'll take care of it. So he tells them to take care of the kids and tells the little ones to be good and wait a moment while patting them on the head. After that, Gray walks up to the door and asks who it is, and the person outside tells him it's the guild receptionist Sasha. Hearing that, Gray opens the door. Sasha wishes him good morning and tells him she apologizes for suddenly bothering him. Gray tells her it's fine and asks what her business is. Sasha bows before him and tells him Terrell's wants to call him. Gray seems a bit surprised by that. He understands that Terrell's is the name of the Bastoke Adventurers Guild guildmaster. He's a former A-rank adventurer, but it's not unusual for a retired pro to run a guild. Managing a bunch of hot-headed adventurers isn't easy, and as expected, it sounds like some kind of trouble. So he asks Sasha what business they have with a plain old adventurer like him. Sasha explains that for the past few days there have been reports of children going missing in nearby towns and villages. Their guild has already received several search requests from their parents. Gray gets concerned to hear that and wonders if it is human kidnapping or a monster with those kinds of habits. Either way, it's a sickening story. Sasha asks in a serious tone what he thinks and tells him he's free to turn it down. Gray scratches the back of his head, thinking he was actually planning on taking Maya and the others out to buy clothes that day, and says he sees. Right then, Alice comes up to him from behind and calls him. He tells him he's sorry he ended up overhearing the conversation. If it's a formal request, then he asks if he won't please accept the job. He says that if there are people out there suffering just for someone else's greed, he wants to help them. Being forcibly separated from loved ones is just too painful. But right now, he's powerless to do anything. So Alice tells Gray that he knows it's selfish of him to ask for something like this after he's already saved him. But he knows that if it's Gray, he can definitely save those people. Gray finds it hard to meet his eyes. Then he tells Alice that he's going to go get the details now, so he should look after everyone until he gets back, all right. Alice says with a smile, yes sir. Gray tells Sasha to wait for him there, as he's going to talk to the kids, and Sasha says okay. Then Gray heads back inside, thinking Nana and the others are going to be mad at him again. Seeing him, Nina, Stella, and Lutz run up to him, excitedly saying he's back and telling him to hold them. Gray says yeah, he's back, and thinks he has to head out again soon, but he could do this forever. As he picks up 2 kids in his arms and 1 on his shoulder, which makes them really happy, this is what they call a perfect B-rank adventurer. Ariel holds Nana's hand and asks the 3 of them with a smile if they aren't lucky, but also tells them not to trouble Gray too much. Nana excitedly says okay. Then Gray tells them to listen, as he has something he needs to tell them all. Isuka tells him he should probably put down those 3 first, but Gray says it's fine. Gray understands that if he's going to make these kids feel lonely again, he wants to give them as much attention as he can right now. He tells them that after this he has to go to work and might not be able to come home for a few days. Then all of a sudden, Lutz holds Gray's head tightly, and the other two stare at him, while everyone else seems confused. Theo asks Ariamel if she isn't going to stop Nina and the others. Ariamel says Gray looks so happy, so she's not really sure what to do. Right then, Mia surprisingly asks, wait, if they aren't supposed to be angry, as Nina and Stella poke and squeeze Gray's cheeks. Seeing that, Mia says she has no idea, and Alice puts his hand on her shoulder, telling her that's just something only those guys understand. Then Gray heads back to the main entrance and tells Sasha sorry for the wait, but Sasha tells him no, she's the one who barged in so suddenly. After that, she says they should head to the guild right away. On their way, Sasha tells Gray it sounds strange for someone asking for a favor to say this, but she requests him not to push himself too hard. Gray gets surprised to hear that, and asks where this is coming from. Sasha says she just realized that he has a place to come home to as well, and that there are people there waiting for his return. She asks him if he heard that whole exchange at the house. Gray thinks it should go without saying though, and tells her obviously. Meanwhile, near the outskirts of Bastoke inside the forest, a bandit asks one of his comrades if he was in there, as the comrade brings a kid up to him and irritatedly asks how he should know what they are going to do if none of them are the right ones, as they don't even know what the kid looks like or if it's a boy or a girl. He adds it's not like they're going to take them back where they came from anyway. That's why they're just snatching whoever and shoving them to those guys, isn't it? The other guy says if they're the wrong ones, they said they'd buy them anyway. No clue what they use them for. Then his comrade takes the kid away saying whatever, he's not doing this for free, that's for sure. After the guy puts the kid inside their wagon, he kicks the wagon, furiously telling the kids inside to shut the hell up. The other guy tells him to knock it off. They don't know what the conditions are for their skills to awaken, so depending on the skills they get, they could be the ones in danger. His comrade releases a sigh and says he just wants to sell these brats and go get a drink already. Words probably reach the guild, so it's about time they wrap this up. Being in this line of work for a long time, they knew exactly when to pull out, or so they thought. At the same time, in the Bastoke Adventurers Guild, Sasha shows Gray a staircase, saying right this way. Gray understands the second floor of the guild consists of the guildmaster's office and the reception room. An adventurer like him has no business there. It's usually for something like this, a personal request. Unlike requests from the state or nobility, a request from the guild itself is more like a favor, so technically they can turn it down, though that usually means it's the kind of troublesome case that's hard to say no to. After they reach upstairs, Sasha knocks on the door of Taller's office and tells him she's brought Gray. Talers tells them to come in. Then Sasha tells him to excuse her as she opens the door and they enter the office. After that, seeing Gray, Bastoke Guildmaster Talers tells him with a smile, sorry for calling him in so suddenly. Gray tells Talers he heard there was a request specifically for him and he's there for details. Talers tells him yes, well, to have a seat as he'll fix some tea. He just got his hands on some excellent tea leaves, so to just give him a moment. At that moment, Sasha explains to Gray that serving tea to guests is a hobby of Mr. Talers, and Gray says he sees. He understands Talers rarely leaves his office. That's why so few people actually know his face. According to Halsaria, he's incredibly powerful, and was apparently a famous titled adventurer back in his prime. Then, as Talers finishes pouring tea and is bringing the teacups toward Gray, he says it looks like the other person has arrived as well. Gray surprisingly wonders about the other person and turns toward the door as Amelia enters the office and says sorry for the intrusion. Gray gets surprised to find Amelia there, and Talers tells him he'll explain everything, so not to give him such a scary look. Gray tries to explain that no, his face is always like that, but stops, realizing it's no use, and tells him he wants to get moving with the details. Then Talers says they should discuss the request. He believes they've learned that children have been going missing consecutively in the Bastoke outskirts. He wants them to investigate it and rescue them. Gray wonders, assuming this is a kidnapping, why they are targeting places with smaller populations. If it's simply because it's easier, or if there's a high probability that whatever they're looking for is in those areas, maybe to delay the news, or maybe they just haven't made a move on that town yet. But Gray asks Talers if Amelia is taking the job. Does he really need him? Talers explains he originally intended to ask the Valkyrie, but the timing was poor. They received a personal request from Mr. Maxim Philo, so he had Amelia make some arrangements. Gray gets surprised to hear about the Philo company as he thinks, if he recalls, they set up shops where the Kodaro orphanage used to be, so he's the head of that company. Amelia says the request is to guard a caravan to the royal capital. She's leaving that to Kasha and the others, and she intends to handle this one herself. Gray says he sees, so he's just there to back her up. He asks if it's okay for Kasha and the rest to handle the request without her. Amelia says if it's a request from a merchant company, there's no way they'll fail as long as Kasha and Halsaria are there. It would be different if it were a request from a noble though. Gray understands it's because nobles are obsessed with appearance, so then Talares asks, regarding this request, if they will accept it. Amelia replies she already told him her stance, and Gray tells him he'll take it too. Talares says with a smile that they should discuss the reward and process the paperwork. He asks regarding the split, considering the ranks, if they shall give Amelia the larger share. Amelia tells him no, to make it 50-50. She adds with a serious tone that she won't accept it unless it's an even split. Talares says if she says so. Gray asks him if the headquarters won't give him grief for a B+ and an A+ getting the same reward on request. Talares says well yeah, but to let them talk, as all they ever do is complain anyway. From the guild's perspective, it would be much worse to have things sour between them and the two of them over something like this. At that moment, Sasha shows Amelia a paper, telling her here is the request form. Amelia reads it and says yeah, looks right. Then Sasha asks how they would like to handle the temporary party application. Gray understands an adventurer cannot belong to multiple parties at once. Generally, if they want to move to another one, they have to complete the withdrawal process at the guild first. However, a temporary party allows them to join another one for the duration of the shared request. Gray asks if that is necessary, but Amelia tells Sasha yes, please. She asks Gray if it isn't fine, as there's no real downside, or if her skill level is not enough for him. Gray nervously says that's not it, and Amelia smiles. Then she turns back to Sasha and tells her there's no problem. She requests her to process the formation of the party. Sasha says understood and requests them to wait a moment. At that moment, Talares says well, he has other business to attend to, so he'll take his leave and leaves the room. After that, Amelia tells Gray she's sorry, and Gray asks for what. Amelia tells him it's not that she minds forming a party with him, but she worriedly asks if the party formation was a bit too forced. Gray asks her if she's still agonizing over what happened back then, as he believes the reason the Twin Swords disbanded was undoubtedly his fault. He refused to follow the orders of a certain noble. He doesn't regret that even now. Even if he lived his life over 1,000 times, he would never obey him. But Gray remembers Atlas, Roy, Amelia, Kasha, and Frumaire. None of them ever blamed him. He's the one who robbed every one of their dreams back then. The guilt is still there. However, he tells Amelia with a determined tone that they're definitely going to finish this mission, to leave the support to him. Amelia excitedly says right, she's counting on him. After that, the two of them walk out of the guild, and Gray asks Amelia if she minds if they stop by the inn in his house for a second, as he won't take long. Amelia says she doesn't mind. They should go together. But at that moment, Gray hears people around them whispering to each other, asking if that's Amelia-san with him, and why she's with a guy like that. While Amelia's body starts tingling, thinking, well, it's weird to say, but Gray's a single dad now. Look at that understanding appeal. After a bit, as they reach the inn, Gray greets the owner, and the old man surprisingly asks what's up, as he's brought quite the beauty with him that day. Amelia tells him with a smile, nice to meet him. She is Amelia, and she is an adventurer just like Gray. The old man gets shocked to hear that and asks what, as he recognizes that she's from Valkyrie. Amelia says she's counting on him. Then Gray tells the old man he came there that day because he has a bit of a favor to ask. Hearing that, the old man laughs and says he sees. He gets it now. He wants him to be the matchmaker for their wedding rite, to leave it to him, which irritates Gray. While Amelia gets shocked to hear that and screams out loud, asking, wedding. Then Gray tells the old man he's wrong. He wants to ask him to look after the kids for a while. The old man surprisingly asks the kids. Then Gray tells Amelia, this guy is actually trustworthy, so he asks if it's alright if he tells him everything. Amelia says, if that's what he says. And the old man says, wait, they should hear the details in the back. He calls Lena and asks if he can ask her to watch the shop for a bit, and Lena tells him, Got it, while Amelia's face is still hot red from hearing about wedding. After they all sit in a room at the back, Gray tells the inn owner about the children disappearing. He says they received a request from the guildmaster, but they expect it'll take a few days to rescue the kids and wipe out the culprits. The old man says he sees, so while he's away he wants to leave his kids in his care. Gray says yeah. The old man thinks about it and says fine, but he has a condition. He tells Gray, once the job is finished, to tell him how everything went down. Also to make sure none of this reaches Lena's ears. Absolutely not a word. Hearing that, Gray realizes he's noticed something, hasn't he? He and Amelia glance at each other. Then Gray tells the old man he promises, and the old man says all right then, to leave the kids to him, and tells the two of them to make sure to come back in one piece. Gray tells him yeah. Then as the three of them come out of the room, Lena gets surprised to see Gray and asks if he had some business there. The old man tells her he said he's going to do something erotic now, so he should lend him a room. Immediately his daughter tosses the bell in front of her straight at his face, which badly hurts him. That's so funny. Then Lena tells Gray and Amelia with a smile, bye-bye. And Gray walks out of the inn along with Amelia, thinking it's amazing how the old man never learns his lesson. After that, as the two of them start heading toward Gray's house, Amelia nervously says, good grief, he was quite an interesting person, and laughs. Then she asks Gray if he thinks this case is just a kidnapping for money. Gray says he can't say yet, but he thinks about it, the missing children, the personal request to Valkyrie at this specific timing, the Philo family, the innkeeper's attitude just now, and says it certainly smells fishy. Amelia says, once they find the culprits, they should make them spit out everything they know. Gray says she's right, but Amelia tells him, even if he makes a mistake, not to wipe them all out, okay? And Gray says fine. After that, as Gray reaches home, the little ones instantly get on him and hold him tight. Right then, Stella and Nina grab Amelia as well and tell her not to go either, which shocks her. Right then, Theo shows up to free Amelia and tells her she's so sorry, and Ariamel frustratedly asks the little ones if she didn't tell them not to trouble Mr. Gray and the others. After that, Gray looks at the rest of the kids and finds them staring at him, looking nervous, so Gray tells them he's fine really. But Alice surprisingly asks if he's getting extreme, and Asuka says, wow. 3 little kids plus the protagonists and the hero. They could take on the Demon King's army. But wherever the extreme adventurer passes, the path becomes a wasteland. If Ariamel and Theo joined in, they could run over even an evil god. If it doesn't die, Papa will just keep running it over with a tank until it does, no problem. Amelia nervously says, so this is what Gray becomes when he has children. Then Gray tells everyone to listen. While he's gone, to rely on the innkeeper. He's already made arrangements. Ariamel says with a smile, understood. Nina calls Amelia Oni-chan and tells her to come again. And Amelia hurriedly tells her she'll definitely come to play again, she promises. After that, Gray heads out with Amelia and tells her, now then, about the whereabouts of those missing kids. Amelia says they still don't have enough information, but they should be making contact from their side soon, which surprises Gray.